Welcome all my fellow Washington brethren and sistren. I am your man and Washington football fan. Lou, thank you for joining me here on the Washington Football Report. That's still something I'm getting used to. I was doing so good with that. I really was. I'll eventually get that down seamlessly, but it's a process. I tell that to people all the time. And you know what's funny is I have a lot of conversations about the name with people who either aren't really football fans to begin with or aren't Washington football fans. And they ask me about the name and what I think about it. And you know, they laugh at the Washington football team name. And, you know, they don't really understand the whole process that you go through in changing a name. And it's the same thing we saw, you know, LeBron James having a laugh. And, you know, KD's a Washington football team fan. And so LeBron was, you know, poking fun at the name and KD stepped in. And, you know, a lot of people just, they hear the name, they think it's a joke, it's funny, ha, 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 whatever. And so I try to explain to people that it's not easy, one, when you've been calling the team the Redskins forever. And now, you know, all of a sudden, abruptly, they're the Washington football team. It's an adjustment for everyone. And especially us as fans. I know I still talk to a lot of fans that are like, I'm not calling them anything but the Redskins. I don't give a damn. I'm going to wear my stuff. Look, you should still wear the gear. You should still, because even when that gear becomes defunct, it's still going to be something that is a throwback item down the road, you know, something that you can look back on. And someone said, look, it's racist. There's no reason for it to even be recycled. And that may be the case. You know, you may never see these items come back into circulation, but you'll always have your stuff, you know, and nobody can take that away from you. But anyway, I digress. Welcome to the Washington Football Report. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. I got a jam-packed show, a lot to discuss. As we talked about last week, they were going to put on the pads. They were finally putting on the helmets. Everything's kind of set in motion now. Tonight, the theme of this show tonight is competition, and more competition. I'm going to use competition, that word, and the C words, and I talked about that, the C words of culture and competition and camp. All of these C words are running rampant right now, and we're going to talk about them ad nauseum tonight because we've heard the word competition thrown around, and I think, look, it's coach speak. You know, a lot of times, especially when you get a brand new coach into an organization, he doesn't know the players don't know him, and he wants to come in and he wants to foster competition. He doesn't want anybody feeling like they've arrived. You know, there are certain guys that are going to be mainstays that have earned the right to be respected as soon as a new coach comes in. But when you got a young team like we do, and we'll talk about that a little bit more at greater lengths later on in the show, but when you have a young team like we do, there aren't many guys that are etched in stone. There aren't many mainstays and there aren't many foundation pieces here already. And so they're trying to locate those guys that you can ride with into the future. And so there's a lot of competition, and Rivera said that from the jump. But, you know, you hear that from every coach. All 32 of them around the league talk about competition this time of the year. So what makes this any different? You're just thinking to yourself, yeah, competition. We've heard it before, you know, and it's not going to be as great a competition as you try to make it out to be. Like I've talked about, and I said this, and I probably should have said this before, and I haven't stressed this before, but I'm stressing it now after seeing some of the things and hearing some of the things that I've heard and seen over the last 72 hours or so, that you guys need to wipe the memory bank clean on some of these players. Give them a clean slate. You know, the Jaron Christians, the Troy Apkeys of the world, some of these guys that you might have been down on in the past that you don't think can play. Greg Stroman is another one. Look, wipe the memory bank clean on some of these guys. Give them another opportunity to prove that they belong here. Don't just write them off because of what you've seen in the past, okay? Troy Apke is a guy that's running with the ones. Now, they're platooning a lot of guys in and out, and we'll talk about that ad nauseum again tonight. We'll talk about just how many guys are getting opportunities, and you'll be surprised at just how many people are being filtered in and out of these starting lineups and being given opportunities to perform. Again, there's no preseason. So this is imperative that they see what these guys can do in these 11-on-11 and 9-on-9 situations. It's imperative that they get as many bodies in here. You wouldn't normally have to see how many guys that they're throwing out there in these practices, because you've got preseason games too that you would be able to evaluate your second and your third string, 2s against 2s, 3s against 3s. You'd be able to filter those guys into the third and fourth quarter of these preseason games to really get a feel for what they can do when the bullets are live. That's no longer the case, particularly this year with no preseason games. You don't get to see these young guys in live action to be able to assess, can they help you or not? How do they respond when this situation goes? You've been practicing this all along, and now they throw a wrench into your plans. How do they respond to that? How do they respond to a little bit of adversity? They gave up a long touchdown. How do they come back and play? Where's their mental approach and where's their psyche after that? You don't get to see those things in game action, so now they have to try to do this and replicate this in practice. And so they're throwing a bunch of bodies in here. And I'm fascinated by all of the competition that's being fostered right now. And you know what? I thought early in this process that it was going to be easy to come up with a 53-man roster. I was wrong. And I told you, I'll always be the first to admit when I'm wrong, because I'm going to be the first to tell you when I'm right too. And I'm going to tell you right now, I was wrong about the ease of which we were going to be able to put together a 53-man roster, because there are a lot of guys getting opportunities that I have just dismissed. And I'm a part of that whole conversation of wiping the slate clean on guys that I have come up with, different ways of putting them in my mind and kind of filtering out the roster and saying, okay, this guy is nothing more than a backup. This guy shouldn't even be on the roster. I've got to wipe that slate clean. These guys are all being given a different opportunity in a different system with different coaches who may see a different skill set with some of these players. And I've always said, of all the major sports, hockey, basketball, baseball, football is the one where fit and coaching staff matters most. All right. If you can hit a baseball, if you can run and catch a baseball, you can play in the major leagues if you're really good. All right. If you can shoot a basketball, if you can dribble a basketball, if you can pass a basketball, and you're really good at all of those things, or really good at one or two of those things, you can play in the NBA. It doesn't matter what this scheme is. They don't have real schemes. Some coaches run some plays. Other coaches don't run plays. They just run ISO and say, hey, let this guy have the basketball, like the Houston Rockets, for example, with James Harden. They just run ISO. James, you create and give it to your teammate if you feel like it, and if not, you shoot it your damn self. There are teams like that, and then there are teams like Golden State and San Antonio who actually run set plays. So, but in the NBA, it doesn't matter. If you can shoot, you can play some D, you can play in the NBA. Same thing with hockey. There may be a little bit more strategy involved in hockey. I'm not a big hockey guy, so I wouldn't be able to actually tell you exactly how all that stuff goes. But no sport where you could look at a guy where a Tom Brady can flourish in a situation, and if he had ended up somewhere else other than New England, he could have been out of the league in 3 years. That's how this league works. If you don't land with the right coaching staff, if you don't land where someone sees your talent and is able to put you in the best positions to succeed, you too can fail. Look, Josh Norman, I bet you any amount of money Josh Norman doesn't look terrible in Buffalo this year. I bet anybody any amount of money. You guys think he stinks, he's terrible. He was horrible here. He had lost all confidence here, and rightfully so. He was not good. We did not put him in good positions to succeed. I guarantee you a guy like Sean McDermott, who was very familiar with Josh Norman when he was playing some of his best football in Carolina, is going to take Josh Norman, put him in cover 3, and Josh Norman's going to play a lot better in Buffalo than he did here. And he's older now, too. I guarantee you that. It's all about scheme. It's all about fit. It's all about knowing what a guy is capable of doing. And some of these players that we've seen in the past that we didn't think was any good, were any good, they're going to get a new opportunity. Clean slate, new coaching staff, and you heard Ron Rivera, and I'll talk about that in our coach and player speak segment a little bit later on, but Ron Rivera talked about Troy Apke specifically, and he said, look, Troy knows where to go, and he's a tremendous athlete, and I talked about that on the training camp video the other day, that, look, Troy Apke's a fun. That's what got him drafted by the Redskins in the 3rd round. He's a phenomenal athlete. We know this to be a fact. We saw it at the combine. You see it on tape. The problem is Troy Apke doesn't do the fundamental things right now. And that's what they're trying to instill in him. And you know what I liken it to? And I meant to bring this up when I talked about Troy Apke on the training camp video yesterday. I meant to bring up the fact that in Carolina, they had a Troy Apke. His name was Colin Jones. Okay, for those of you unfamiliar, Colin Jones, about a 6'1" safety, could run like the wind, a guy that was a sub 4.5 guy, like a 4.44 type 40 guy. Key on special teams, which Troy Apke is here. But also, he would get reps in the Carolina Panthers backfield as a starting safety at times. Now, they always recycling in and out safeties in Carolina. To me, if you ask me, Ron Rivera, one of the positions that he doesn't necessarily value all that much is the safety position. They never really had a true dominant safety in Carolina. They would go sign veterans. Mike Adams played there for a little bit. We all know they signed Reed a couple of years ago. They did the Trey Boston thing 8 million times. Like, they weren't really big on going out and getting a big-time free agent safety or drafting one very high. They were more so about the front seven and the corners. I don't think they really are that reliant on the safety position, but because of the scheme that they play a ton of cover three under Ron Rivera. And so when you play cover three, you essentially are making sure that everybody keeps everything in front of them. And so safety play isn't that essential unless you're playing the Seattle Seahawks brand of cover three, where then you really want an Earl Thomas type of free safety covering the middle third of the field. But that's nor here nor there. Bottom line is they had a Colin Jones in Carolina, and I'm thinking that Troy Apke could fill that same void here really well and play that role of Colin Jones, the do-it-all special teams demon that can fill in, play some starter snaps if need be at safety. And so I wouldn't discount Troy Apke as a bigger part of this defense and team moving forward. I know a lot of you have written him off. Don't, is what I'm essentially saying to you. You know, Jaron Christian, I was guilty of writing him off as nothing more than a swing tackle in this league. Don't. He's getting starters reps right now. And to make matters worse, Sadiq Charles missed his third straight day of practice today with undisclosed injury. And I love what Ron Rivera said. We'll talk more about his stance on injuries, especially right now while we're in camp. But Sadiq Charles isn't even healthy to compete. So right now it's a two-man race until Sadiq Charles is able to get healthy and get back into the swing of things and into the fray. But I talked about this on my podcast when I talked about Tua Tagovailoa and him potentially starting week one, and how the preseason can make or break a guy that's a rookie getting an opportunity to start right away. You know, back in 2012, Russell Wilson was brought in to be the backup to Matt Flynn, who the Seahawks gave a ton of money to. Well, guess what? Russell Wilson came into camp, lit it up, showed the leadership qualities that they were looking for. He got into preseason, he tore it to shreds, and all of a sudden they said, this is the guy. We don't need to start Matt Flynn. We need to start Russell Wilson, and they haven't looked back since. And preseason can do that for you. And, you know, Sadiq Charles could have been a great example of that. He could have gotten in, you know, the second preseason game, looked awfully fluid, destroyed the competition. Jaron Christian could have looked okay, but not moved the needle. And Sadiq Charles could have gotten an opportunity to play in the third preseason game, killed it, and they could have said, all right, this is our starting left tackle. You're not going to get that opportunity now. So right now, it looks like it's going to be it's looking more and more like Jaron Christian's job to lose at left tackle. And I've heard thus far he's been good. He hasn't been great. He's been solid, but you know, we'll see what happens. Cornelius Lucas also in the mix. He got the start today, as today was Veterans Day, essentially, and they gave a lot of the veterans a day off. And you heard today that the offense didn't look good. As a matter of fact, J.P. Finley described the offense as awful across the board. He said all quarterbacks were bad. Dwayne Haskins was bad. Kyle Allen was bad. They were out of sync. A lot of batted balls at the line of scrimmage. The offensive line was dominated. It didn't give Dwayne a lot of time to go through his progressions. Well, that makes a ton of sense when you think about it, because neither tackle was out there. Morgan Moses wasn't out there. And I don't understand why Jaron Christian, unless he's dealing with an injury or he is coming back from something that we aren't aware of. I know last offseason he was coming off of surgery. I don't recall that being the case this offseason, but then again, I'm not 100% sure, but he was off. Why is he off? He's still on his rookie contract, and he wasn't a first-round pick, so it's not like he's on a fifth year of a 5-year deal. He's in the third year of a rookie contract. What is he getting a day off for? He should be out there getting as many reps as possible, but Cornelius Lucas was out there, and those guys struggled. They struggled today. The defense won the day, and they dominated today. A lot of interceptions, a lot of dropped interceptions, a lot of batted balls. It was not a good day for the offense, but I'm going to chalk that up, a lot of it too. And you're going to have your good days and your bad days with the offense, obviously, because I was going to do a training camp report today, and then I said I might as well just save it for the show tonight. You're going to have days where the offense just doesn't look good, and the defense. And to be honest with you, our defense should dominate our offense. They should. It's a new scheme, a bunch of new moving parts. Everyone's got to get acclimated to one another. It's not hard to get your defense out there and get everybody flying around and communicating and on one accord. You know, defense is a lot easier to digest than offense is. And a lot of these guys, you know, sans for Chase Young and maybe one or two guys in the secondary, a lot of these guys have been playing with one another, you know, or have in the past. It's a different scheme, obviously, different fits in the run game, things of that nature, 3-4 versus 4-3. So there are some nuances that are going to be different this year. But when you talk about offense versus defense, I think the defense should be ahead of the offense, and they are right now. Every time I'm listening to these offensive guys speak, there's been one day in particular where the offense felt like they got the better of the defense. But for the most part, it's been the defense really dominating and winning the day at camp thus far. And that makes sense because we've talked about this already. We've said it, and a lot of you have said the same thing and are echoing this, that out of the gate, Dwayne may not start sharp because I'm assuming he's going to be the starting quarterback. A lot of you are assuming the same thing. He may not come out of the gate swinging. You know what I mean? And this offense may not come out and be absolutely killing it like they did week 1 last year versus the Philadelphia Eagles. You know, even though it wasn't enough, the defense didn't make enough plays. They came out guns a-blazing last year, did the offense, and we were shocked. You know, we were shocked. We were up big at halftime, and we couldn't believe what we were seeing. Like, whoa, is this really what we're going to be like offensively? And that wasn't the case. However, I don't think we're going to start fast, but we've all assumed that if we are good this year, it's going to mostly be because of the defense. If we're going to have a chance to be in ball games, it's going to be because of the defense, more likely than not. So it's not surprising that we're hearing that the defense is a step or two ahead of the offense right now. As a matter of fact, that's probably the way that it should be. So I'm not surprised there at all. But we'll get into coach and players speak a little bit later on in the show. I also want to get into a new segment that I want to kind of take a look at, and it's inside the pictures. And so pictures tell a story, and I've been following these pictures and all the videos because this is a unique camp for all of us. I'm right up the street from Richmond now. I was planning on attending some of these camp practices this year and really being a little bit more involved in what was going on at training camp. Obviously, COVID had a different plan for everyone. And so, you know, now we're reliant upon these beat writers and these players and these coaches when they do speak. We're reliant on a lot of what they're able to produce for us. And so these pictures tell a lot of the story as well as to who's getting reps, who's in with what unit, this, that, and the third. And so we're going to go inside the pictures a little bit later on the show as well. But as always, I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight. I know there's a lot of different things you could be doing. NBA playoff basketball. I had somebody say, hey, what are you doing? Caps are on. Who gives a shit about the Caps? The Islanders are about to take them down and finish them off anyway. Look, I don't know what the hell's going on in hockey. I'm not going to act and pretend as if I do. I just knew at one point the Islanders were up 3-0. I think it's 3-1 now. Whatever the case may be, you could be doing a lot of different things. I'm pretty sure there's some baseball on too. But you're here chopping it up with me, and I greatly appreciate you for that. That being said, I'm going to get to some comments, and we are going to start talking about this team, start looking at a lot of these battles at camp. We're going to start talking about this roster. I'm really intrigued by this roster. Let's get to your comments, though, and see what you guys have to say. So let's get to any super chats, see if we even got any super chats to start. And we have a few super chats, so let's start knocking some of these down. Got a super chat here from Door Gunner. Thank you for the super chat, Door Gunner. Greatly appreciate you. Door Gunner writes, was nervous about the O-line before camp, but now scared with injuries and guys not playing well. I saw that they brought 5 guys in for looks. Not good. And the 5 guys that they brought in, it's really more about bodies. Okay, when you start giving guys days off, as they're going to do with some of these veteran players, whether it be Morgan Moses or Brandon Sheriff or some of these guys that are going to get days off, when you start giving guys days off, you need other bodies to help you in camp. So I think it's more about that. Obviously, Sadiq Charles gets injured and hasn't practiced the last 3 days. When you have guys go down that you were expecting to be out there giving you some quality snaps in practice, you got to bring other guys in to take some of the load off of these other guys. It's almost like a load management type of situation where you just don't want the guys that you do have taking the bulk of these reps. Remember, you're going through a whole process where a lot of these guys haven't been banging on each other for quite some time. This is the first time you've been in some live physical contact. You don't want to overwork these guys, which is why you're seeing some of these veterans get a day off. AD and Thomas Davis got the day off on Wednesday. They were back at practice today, and they flip-flopped it and gave the offensive guys a day off today. So Kerrigan was off as well. So, you're going to see this from time to time, and you just need to have more bodies there. But you should be concerned about the offensive line, okay? Because we don't know. Like I told you, I feel like 4 out of the 5 positions are pretty much spoken for. If you're going from left or you're going from right to left, we know the right side of the offensive line, if they're healthy, they're going to be fine. I know a lot of you have been killing Morgan Moses. I don't know why, and I do know some of the issues you have with Morgan Moses, but he's still a quality right tackle in this league, and he's a leader on his team now, believe it or not. So you guys need to understand where he is in his career and where he is on the totem pole on this football team. He's looked upon as one of the leaders of this football team. But Morgan Moses at right tackle, Brandon Sheriff at right guard, Chase Roullier at center, and Wes Martin at left guard. To me, those 4 positions are spoken for. Wes Martin's going to win that left guard battle. I'm assured of that if he's healthy. I feel really confident Wes Martin's going to get it done at left guard. Where the real question mark is at left tackle, Jaron Christian. Is he ready for the show or not? We're going to find out. I'm not going to write him off, and I'm going to do the best I possibly can to try to erase what I've seen from him in the past, because he was young and he wasn't playing in this system. And he's learned a lot. He may be physically stronger now, and there are a lot of things that Jaron Christian in year 3 versus Jaron Christian in year 1 is vastly different, and there's some things that he may have picked up along the way. And as Morgan Moses said, he worked out with Trent Williams this offseason. He's gotten stronger. He's a guy that has a lot more knowledge now than he has in the past 2 years. And so let's hope that all of those things start to seep into his play, and all of a sudden the light switch comes on for him. But that's the real position you need to be worried about. I'm not concerned about from left guard over to right tackle. It's left tackle, and that may be the most important position on the entire offensive line. And that's a position that we just don't know about right now. So you should be concerned about the offensive line, but I'm not overly concerned with the offensive line. Here's the thing. If we start to have injuries, knock on a little bit of wood, if we start to have a little bit of injuries, that's when you should be concerned. That's when I think the problematic issues that we've had in the past with this team. And this is what Ron Rivera and company have tried to guard against. Now, this is the reason where preseason games would have been so beneficial, because we would have gotten to see a Kamal Ishmael. We would have been able to formulate a little bit more of an opinion on him. Oh, man, if Chase goes down, or if we got to shuffle around some pieces, Kamal Ishmael can come in and give us some quality snaps. We don't know what he can do. We don't know what Ross Pierschbaker is looking like this year. He may look a lot better than he did as a rookie. We don't know what Timon Paris is doing at tackle this year. He could have took a quantum leap from year 2 to year 3 and be playing a much better brand of football. We just don't know. But when you hear that, oh yeah, both of our tackles had the day off and they struggled, you're thinking, well, it's the same damn Timon Paris that we saw in the preseason the last couple of years. Don't want him out there. So, and Cornelius Lucas, the guy we brought in, he struggled. Heard Montez Sweat, ran him over and forced a fumble. So, again, that's where I think the real issues start to come into play, is that if we got to go to the bench and we got to start testing this depth, this all of a sudden newfound depth that we have, that's when we could get into a little bit of trouble here. So I, like you, am a little bit concerned, but I'm not overly concerned. Thank you for the super chat, Door Gunner. Got another super chat. This one is from my guy, Rob Yu. Thank you for the super chat, Rob Yu. As always, thank you, Rob Yu, who writes, what up, Lou? Still down about the whole guy situation, but really think Bryce Love can be that guy at some point this season. I talked about this briefly. I'm glad we got out of the guy's business when we did. I want to see that young man get his life back on track. It may ultimately have some jail time included in it. We'll see. A lot of accusations coming his way. We'll see what happens. He's got to get his life under control, but I think we all are disappointed with the way that situation ended, however, because we had high hopes for Bryce or Darius Geis, but that page is turned. You got to move on. He's no longer with the organization, and he's got a number of things that are much bigger than football that he needs to worry about. But when you start talking about Bryce Love, that is a guy that I think we're all excited about. I was definitely excited. And you know what's crazy is how much a difference a month makes, because we sat here on this program and some of you told me, dude, why are we even having this conversation? Bryce Love isn't getting cut. But I thought it bear mentioning because at the time, I've always, and I still think, we're keeping 5 backs. I know some of you said, dude, you're crazy. We're only keeping 4 backs. I think we're keeping 5 backs. All right, I could be wrong. I think we're keeping 5 backs. I think they're keeping J.D. McKissic. And if somebody gets cut, it'll be J.D. McKissic. It will not be Peyton Barber. It'll be J.D. McKissic. And I just don't see them doing that. But anyhow, when we talked about the running back position, we talked about Bryce Love potentially not making his team, which is asinine. And remember, I didn't think he was going to get cut. I just said, hey, this is a conversation that we need to have, that he could potentially not make the football team. And there were people making 53-man rosters, and they didn't include Bryce Love in it, which I thought was crazy. But, it's a difference of a month, and it's crazy how big of a difference a month makes, because now all of a sudden, not only is Bryce Love on this roster, we're looking at Bryce Love like, hey, bruh, can we get you a new number? All right, that 35 is hideous, okay? Can we get you a new number? And you're going to have to step up. We're going to need you, bruh. And so we're looking at Bryce Love like, hey, how we were looking at Geis just 3 weeks ago. Hey, we need you, bruh. We're going to need you to step up and do some things for us this year. And the whole thought process, the entire offseason has been, hey, let's take it slow with Bryce Love. Let's work him back in there. It's the first time coming off a major knee surgery. Remember, he had 2 surgeries, had to do some procedural stuff afterwards to clean up some loose cartilage and things floating around in his knee. And so he had another procedure. So we're like, hey, let's not rush him back. Let's take our time with this guy. Let's keep the workload down. And now all of a sudden, after the Geis situation, everyone's like, hey, this is the guy that's got to step up. Hey, man, going to need you to ramp up that activity. So, Bryce Love is a guy that all of a sudden, Washington football fans are like, yo, this is the guy. This is the guy we're hitching the wagon to. And I'm like, hey, y'all slow down, man. Slow your roll. Slow down. I just want to get to know him. I just want to know Bryce Love first. I don't want to rush into this thing because I want Bryce Love healthy for the long run. But I'm excited about Bryce Love, and he's a guy, and they talked to him first time he was available to the media, and he talked about how, and we'll talk a little bit more about it when we get to coaches and players speak, but he's a guy that is very intriguing, maybe the most intriguing back after you get past Antonio Gibson, who has been having one hell of a week at camp. And so I'm really intrigued by the running back position, intrigued how they're going to use them. I've been seeing different formations. I saw a play where Trey Quinn came in motion behind the quarterback, and they threw him the ball out of the backfield. And it just a lot going on with Scott Turner's offense. There are some exciting formations, some exciting things being done right now. So I'm ready to see this thing unfold. Obviously, we're not going to get to see that until September 13th versus the Philadelphia Eagles, but they're going to have a lot of things, a lot of bullets in the gun and one probably in the chamber when they take on the Eagles that the Eagles aren't really going to be prepared for, and it should be a lot of fun to see them unveil some of this stuff that they've been working on in camp. But Bryce Love is a guy that I think there are going to be a lot of expectations, but Ron Rivera, and I don't want to say too much because we're going to talk about all these things when we get to coach speak, but Ron Rivera did say, look, I'm watching the guys that are coming off of injuries very closely, and I'm going to limit their workload. Bryce Love was included in that conversation. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on. But at some point this season, you're right. Maybe Bryce Love becomes the guy. He's going to have to prove it. And there are other guys in that backfield that they like. And I think much like the linebacker position where they feel like they've got so much versatility and depth that there's guys for every particular situation. I think that's kind of what they're going to do with this running back situation. It's going to be running back by committee. First, second down, Bryce, it'll be, Adrian Peterson. It'll be my man, Peyton Barber. And, third downs or some situations where you want to get a little freaky and get a little bit of trickeration added into the mix. You'll get the Antonio Gibsons, the Bryce Loves of the world, and you'll get the J.D. McKissicks. So I think they're going to have little situations, little packages for all of these guys, and it should be interesting to see how it all kind of works itself out. Thank you for the super chat, Rob. Thank you for the super chat, Just Andre. Greatly appreciate you. As we move on, and I think I got more super chats. Let's see. Yep, got another super chat here from my man, Gally Sanford. Thank you for the super chat, Gally Sanford. Greatly appreciate you, Gally Sanford. Really do appreciate you, as always, holding me now. Gally writes, wanted to show support for the family. Also hit the like button, everyone. Louie, win safe. I can get you an up close and personal with the team. Good friends of the family is huge Washington sponsor. Will hit you up on Patreon. Sounds good, man. I really do appreciate all that you do for the brand. And once again, thank you, Gally, for your support. As always, you always hold me down. I really do appreciate you, Gally Sanford. Got another super chat. This one is from Rob U. Double up. Thank you for doubling up the first of the night. Greatly appreciate you, Rob U, who writes, Lou, can Kendall Fuller play outside effectively? Great question. We do not know the answer to this. He's played outside before. So, coming into the league, out of Virginia Tech, he played outside. He was not a nickel. It wasn't until he got here and we had two corners. Remember, it was Josh Norman on one side and Bachad Breeland on the other side that effectively pushed him inside to the nickel. If not for that situation, he probably would have stayed outside. But because they had two corners that they felt like were starting caliber corners to place outside, he was then bumped inside and he flourished. So the thought process is that he can go back outside where he was before. And he played out wide, outside, I should say, as a boundary corner in Kansas City the first year. And then, that second year, they started playing around with him at different positions, safety, nickel, those types of things. So I think they're going to put him back outside, and what you see with some of the better slot corners around the league, like a Chris Harris Jr., guys that are versatile enough to do it, is that on first and second down, you put your corner outside, and then on third down where the quarterback is looking to get rid of the football quickly and they're trying to go inside to the tight end or to their slot receiver, that's when you kick that guy inside to nickel and you bring in a Darby off the bench. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do, because I think right now the thought process is if a team comes out in a two-back set, let's say a team comes out in a two-back, one tight end set, and so that's two backs, one tight end, two receivers. So your nickel isn't necessarily needed for that particular formation. If that's the case, then you come out in a situation where you got Kendall on one side and you got Fab Moreau on the other side. And you don't need a nickel. But more times than not, teams are going to come out with 3 wide. More likely than not, they're going to come out in 11 personnel, 1 tight end, 1 running back, and 3 wide receivers, and that's going to force you to put a nickel on the field. And if you do that, right now, I'm hearing that Jimmy Moreland looks a lot better. I'm hearing that, Greg Stroman looks a lot better. Now, where are they playing these guys again? I told you what the DBs coach Chris Harris said. Our DBs are DBs. They're going to play everywhere, inside, outside, safety. They're going to play these guys all over the place. So hard to really say where some of these guys are having some of their success, like Stroman, who had a knockdown pass and an interception today. It's going to be tough to figure out where some of these guys are playing because they may be moving these guys all around. Bottom line is Kendall Fuller's going to see some reps out wide. And only time will tell how good he is out wide. Kansas City didn't necessarily love him outside. They didn't love him in the slot necessarily either, which is why he ended up playing at safety towards the end of the season. So, I think it's all about confidence. I've always said that about corners in particular. It's about confidence. Can you get it done? You've got the physical, raw attributes. That's how you got to the NFL. It's all about your mental approach. Do you think you can get it done? That's what happened to Josh Norman. By the time Josh Norman got to the end of his Washington career, his psyche was shot. He had no more competitive juice left. We had taken all of that away from him. All right, stripped him of all the confidence and swag that he came here with. And he left a shell of himself. He'll get it back in Buffalo, more likely than not. But it's all about confidence. And the guys that are the best in this league have swag. You may beat them once, you won't beat them again. And they'll come up and they'll challenge you. They'll make their plays. You're going to make your fair share of plays. That's why these guys get paid. But they're not afraid to come up and challenge you, or they're going to make their fair share of plays. And I think Kendall Fuller is a guy that now that he's back in Washington, I think he's going to get that swag back. And I think he'll be able to play all over the field, out wide and in the slot. Thank you for the super chat, Rob Ewan. Thank you for doubling up. So Billy Ampafo just super chatted. Thank you for the super chat. Hold on a second. So Billy Ampafo I just confirmed it. Thank you for the super chat first and foremost, Billy Ampafo. Had no idea that was the case, but apparently head coach Ron Rivera, and I'm going to read Billy's super chat. Thank you again, Billy. He said, Ron just announced he has cancer. Prayers up. So head coach Ron Rivera has just announced that he has cancer. He just told the team that he has cancer. Don't know what form of cancer. I don't know what he's going to do. But I don't know. So right now it says, I'm reading from the My Teams app. Ron Rivera says he has been diagnosed with a lymph node cancer, but that it is very treatable and curable. So that sounds really upbeat, and it sounds like good news. That's probably the best news that you can have with a situation like that. But still, anytime you hear the word cancer, I get nervous, and so, wow, my heart sunk when I read that super chat. And the first thing I wanted to think about was, is that true? Obviously, it is true. Adam Schefter tweeting about it. JP Finley tweeting about it. I just read you what JP Finley wrote on the My Teams app. It's good to know that it's a very treatable, incurable form of cancer. So now the question is, what steps do Ron and his family need to take to go ahead and rid themselves of this cancer? And what's the process that he has to go through? Will he be away from the team for an extended period of time? Or is this going to be a quick procedure and he can come back? How does all of this work? A lot of questions, not a lot of answers right now, but all I can say, much like Billy said, is prayers go up to Ron and his family, wishing him the best. hoping for a speedy recovery whenever that procedure does take place. They're going to have to remove that, I would assume, as quickly as possible. Who then would take over? Who's in that assistant coach spot? Is that Del Rio? I don't know at this point, but that's got me really curious to find out who is listed as the Redskins assistant head coach. I would assume it's Jack Del Rio. He's got a lot of coaching experience in this league, so I would think he would be the guy that would be next up in the chain of command if Rivera were to have to step away for any amount of time. But that's a scary situation. Glad to hear that it's a very treatable form, and hopefully Ron is able to beat it into submission and come back stronger than ever, because Lord knows his family needs him first and foremost. But this organization, us as fans, that's the only thing we're clinging to right now as an organization. We don't think that we would be this. I can't speak for you guys. I won't speak for you guys. I would not be as hopeful for the future. I would not be as confident for the future if Ron Rivera were not here. If Ron Rivera weren't present in this organization. I can't tell you how many times I've said this offseason, that this organization is so lucky to have Ron Rivera. I'm so glad that he chose us, because we didn't choose him. He chose us. He could, as he said, if this was about money, he could have pitted a bunch of different organizations against one another, and he could have chosen a better opportunity than this one. There were other teams that had vacancies that I think would have been a much more desirable opportunity for him. Strip away the roster. He talked about the roster and the cap space and all the things that he was going to have to work with here. Strip that away and just talk about these organizations and how they're run. There were other opportunities that would have been better than here, and he chose us. And I'm so glad that he did, because the vision that he has for this organization and what he wants to do in changing the culture, these are all things that are necessities right now with this organization. In these times that we're in as an organization, with the name change and all of the scandalous stuff that's going on with this organization, he's been the one guy that has been a calming influence that makes us think that we're going to find a way back to competitiveness, consistently being competitive. And I don't know if we'll ever get back to the glory years. I don't know if we'll ever get back to what we once were as an organization. But I feel really good having Ron Rivera here, and to hear that he has cancer, that's scary. I'm not going to lie to you. As a fan, that is scary. And he sounds like he's in good spirits. It sounds like it's something that can be taken care of. But again, when you start using the C word, I get nervous. And I've always said this about surgery. There's no such thing as a minor surgery. If someone's cutting you open, that's a serious deal. Same thing with cancer. I don't give a damn if it's a little bit of cancer and it's very treatable. Cancer is cancer. I don't give a shit how big, how small. Cancer is cancer. Not all cancers are created equal. I understand that. There are different stages. There are different forms. There are different aggression. It's different forms of aggression. I understand all of those things, but cancer is scary no matter how you chop it up. So prayers go out to him and his family, and I hope that this is a situation that he's able to beat and come back stronger than ever from. And I'm assuming we're going to talk about that more tonight. But like Billy Ampofo said, prayers go up to Ron Rivera and his family. Thank you for the super chat, Billy Amp. Got another super chat. This one from Brandon Brantley. Thank you for the super chat, Brandon Brantley. Greatly appreciate you. Brandon writes, Morgan Moses, best right tackle since John Jansen, underrated. I couldn't agree with you more. I don't understand why Washington fans don't understand this. That since John Jansen, it's been a revolving door at right tackle. We really haven't had a guy to solidify that spot until Morgan Moses came along. And remember, early in Morgan Moses' career, the first 2 years, we were up in the air about Morgan Moses. And then he solidified his roster spot, and then he gave us quality play at the right tackle position and really has given us that. And he prides himself on not missing games. And I don't think he's missed a game since he's been the starter here after his second year in the league. He may get hurt 5 times in a game, but he always seems to come back. He plays through injury. He talked about that when he stepped to the podium last week, how, there's a rapport between him and Brandon Sheriff. They become really good friends. And the thing that he loves about Brandon is that he knows I got a guy that's going to fight next to me tooth and nail. And if Brandon leaves the game, he's going to do everything he can to come back and play in the game. And Morgan says, I pride myself on doing the exact same thing, that he knows if I leave the game, I'm going to do everything I can to get back in the game and get beside him. So that's something that Morgan Moses has done. I love Morgan Moses. Yeah, I'd like to have him omit the false starts. I'd like to have him omit some of the holding penalties, but everybody in the league gets these. And I've told you this. Some of the calls on him and some of the calls on Sheriff have been phantom these last couple of years. And Morgan's total has been really high. Now, the false starts, he could have been called for probably 10 or 15 more false starts that he didn't get called for. That's something he definitely needs to time up a little bit better. But I think with him losing this weight, he doesn't have to get that early jump off the snap anymore. So he doesn't have to basically cheat and try to jump the snap before the offensive or defensive end does. Now I think he can just get off the ball normally because he doesn't have that added weight. And I think he's in great shape now. I'm looking forward to seeing Morgan Moses. And you're right, Brandon. He's the best right tackle we've had since John Jansen. And really, it's not even close. It's not even a debate right now. So I'm with you. I just don't understand how more fans don't seem to understand that concept. Thank you for the super chat, Brandon Brantley. Got another super chat. This one is from Joe Rockhead J. Thank you for the super chat, Joe Rockhead J. Greatly appreciate you. Joe Rockhead writes, remember X-Lax clean? I think detox is complete. Not complete. All right. It's still an ongoing process. But yeah, you're still getting rid of a lot of the stuff that is toxic, that doesn't need to be here, that you can do without. And it's a process. Like I said, it's not going to happen overnight. There are some players that aren't cancers, that aren't guys that you don't want in the locker room, that just aren't very good, that are dead weight, that we need to shed as well. And that's a part of the detox too. That's a part of getting X-Lax clean. And so, again, it's going to happen, and it's that process has started. It started soon as Ron got here. All right, remember, as soon as he got here, he dismissed the safety. Oh, shucks. I can see his face. I can't think of his name, but you guys know what I'm talking about. He dismissed him immediately, like, okay, we're going in a different direction than you are. Maybe you'll get another opportunity with someone else, but it's not going to be here. And he just continued to do that with Josh Norman and Paul Richardson and all of the dead weight that we were carrying around. Monte Nicholson is the name of that safety that he got rid of as soon as he got here. And then he traded away Quentin Dunbar, who didn't want to be here. Got rid of Trent Williams, who didn't want to be here. And he's consistently shed this team of dead weight of guys that either didn't want to be here, who didn't need to be here, or who weren't playing well enough to be here. So that process is going to continue. And, Darius Geis, this is the latest example, of another guy that just for whatever reason couldn't do what he needed to do off the field, and his behavior caught up with him and had to move him, and get rid of him. And so it's a process. It's an ongoing process, but love the direction that it's going in. But I do not think the detox is complete. Not quite yet. Thank you for the super chat, Joe Rockhead J. Let's see. Jeffrey Royale, thank you for the super chat, Jeffrey. Greatly appreciate you. Jeff writes, I appreciate what you do, Louie T. Just showing some love and some support. Keep up the good work. I appreciate that, Jeffrey. I really do greatly appreciate that. Thank you so much for the support. And all I ask is that you just continue to support the movement and the brand, and continue to support the Louie T Network, and continue to watch. I really do appreciate you. Thank you so much for your support. Let's see. Protect Sports. Thank you for the super chat, Protect Sports. Greatly appreciate you. Protect Sports writes, do you think we trade for a tight end before the deadline? I'm not sure if they do anything tight end related this year. It'll be interesting to see if somebody becomes available and what the asking price is. Again, if they identify a guy that they really like, and let's just go with the O.J. Howard or the what's the guy in Cleveland's name? David Njoku. Let's just go with those two in particular, because two young, talented tight ends that are on teams that are loaded at tight end right now that could easily be moved on from, getting closer to the end of their rookie deals. And so those are two names that have come up with this football team in recent months. Whether you're talking closer to the draft with O.J. Howard or closer to training camp with David Njoku. Those are guys that you're intrigued by. Obviously, they're young, which kind of fits in the timeline of what this Washington football team is moving towards, with a young team, with a young nucleus. Those guys would fit into that timeline. Obviously, O.J. Howard being an ex-Alabama member doesn't hurt, because we've got a ton of those guys already on the roster. But, notwithstanding, bottom line is the asking price for those guys was too steep this offseason. And rightfully so. If I spend a first-round pick on a guy, I want at least no worse than a second-round pick in return. And in certain instances, I might want a first-round pick. I want to be greedy. I want a first-round pick. But if I'm Cleveland, if I'm Tampa, there's no way I'm giving these guys away. I'm not taking a third-round pick for a guy I spent a first-round pick on. And it's not because, it's one thing if you're taking a guy it's one thing if you're trading for a guy that hasn't proven himself, hasn't played well in this league, and you're down on him, and you don't see yourself keeping him past this season, and so instead of releasing him, you trade him. That's one thing. And guys around the league, teams around the league can sniff a situation like that out and understand how you feel about a player, and you won't extract all of that value. But in the case of O.J. Howard, in the case of the David Njoku, these guys are talented. And in the case of Njoku, it's been injuries. In the case of O.J. Howard, for whatever reason, the production may not be as high as they thought it was going to be. Whatever the case may be. If the asking price for those guys or some other tight end out there that this team may be smitten with comes down, maybe they'll be willing to, do business with someone for a tight end and this is assuming our tight ends aren't any good. Now, that's a big assumption to make now. It's not far-fetched that our tight ends aren't any good, because we don't think our tight end position is all that great right now, but they're really high on Logan Thomas, man. Ron continues to sing the praises of Logan Thomas. They love his athleticism. They think he just needed an opportunity to really shine, and they're going to give it to him. And so we're going to see what he's able to do. I got another name for you tonight. We're going to talk about him later on. I'm teasing it, but I'm not going to tell you who it is. But there's another guy that they're really, and Ron talked about it. So if you heard Ron speak, then you know who I'm talking about. There's another guy that they're really, really intrigued by. And one of the commenters brought him up a while back. And I didn't dismiss him, but I sort of kind of did. Okay. But when we talked about the tight end position as a whole, I brought him up and I said, look, this is a guy you got to consider as well. And they're giving him some reps. So, again, competition is the name of the game tonight. And that's a guy that's in the competition. So don't dismiss him either. So it's hard to say. I said all of that to say this. Hard to say if they go after someone at the trade deadline or not. First of all, you don't see teams that aren't winning. And I can't say if the Washington football team will be winning games and will be in a position to make a playoff push at the time of the trade deadline or not. I'd like to think that we won't be, but I could be wrong. This is going to be a very unique season. Who knows what happens? But if we're not very good, it's rare that you see a team that's not in the running for something trade for a player at the trade deadline. Now, we've seen more of this recently than we have in the past, where teams that aren't all that great are trading for players. Like in the case of the 49ers trading for Jimmy Garoppolo. They were horrible. They hadn't even won a game yet. Garoppolo comes in, they reel off six straight games, 5 straight games, I believe, to finish up the season or whatever the case may be. And we've seen other teams trade for players. We saw it in baseball, even though this is a different sport. You know, the Mets trade for Stroman, and they weren't any good. And so we're seeing more teams kind of think ahead and say, hey, we may not be good this year, but this is a guy that can help us into the future. Maybe the Washington football team thinks that way with one of these tight ends out here. And if the asking price isn't too great, maybe they pull the trigger. But I think they're more interested in seeing what they have and letting these guys play. And if they don't love their tight end position at season's end, with all the cap space that they're going to have, with all the draft capital that they'll have, I think they'll more likely than not make a move at that position then pull the trigger on trading for someone. And then keep in mind, if you trade for a guy like a Njoku or a O.J. Howard, you also got to pay that guy. Whereas you get cheap labor in the draft for 5 years, you spend the first round pick 4 years in any round later than the first round. So highly unlikely to me that you see them pull the trigger on a tight end, but we'll see. It's hard to really say right now, but I don't. If I had to make an educated guess, I would say no trades for this football team, and not at the tight end position either. Thank you for the super chat. Protect Sports got another super chat. This one is from Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Thank you for the super chat, Mr. Laughing My Head Off, who writes, been following training camp as close as possible. Marcus Ball getting a lot of praise from Ron, and remember he was with Carolina last year, 6'5", 250, plays like a receiver. Keep an eye on him. Well, you just spoiled my surprise, Mr. Laughing My Head Off, because that was a guy I was going to spotlight tonight. A little bit later on in the program. I just teased him when I said there's another tight end that has been getting a lot of run with the ones and has been getting a lot of praise from Rivera and company. And that's who I was talking about, Marcus Ball. So you stole my thunder there, but that's exactly who I was going to bring up. And someone brought him up like a month ago. When we were talking tight end, someone was like, yo, don't forget about Marcus Ball. And I'm like, yeah, Marcus Ball from Ohio State, right? Yeah, that's cool. All right, and I just moved on. Like, I wasn't really too intrigued by him at the time, but, I was more intrigued with the ex-UCLA product that they had on the roster than I was Marcus Ball. But as you mentioned, and I think I did bring this up when we were talking to tight ends, Marcus Ball was in Carolina on their practice squad. So he is a guy familiar with what they're doing. He is a guy that they're familiar with. And he's been getting some run, man. They like this kid a lot more than I think we've been led to believe. Excuse me. And I think this is a guy that you cannot discount. This is someone that we weren't talking about. We were talking about Sprinkle. And we were talking about Hale Henches. And we were talking about Thad Moss. And we were talking about Logan Thomas. But we weren't talking about Marcus Ball. And I think it's time we start talking about Marcus Ball a lot more, because this is a guy that's getting some run. And I'm not just talking about any old run. I'm talking first team rep run. And that's important. And I know it's a lot of platooning going on, and a lot of guys are getting first team reps, but there's a lot of guys not getting first team reps too. And he's not one of them. He's getting in when Dwayne and the starting offensive line and the starting defense and all these guys are in. He's getting meaningful reps, and they're intrigued by his athleticism. So he didn't go to Ohio State for no reason. So this is a guy that, don't sleep on him. And I'm glad you brought him up, even though I was going to talk about him later on. I'm glad you brought him up, Mr. Laughing My Head Off, because that is a guy that definitely has been impressing in camp, and I am intrigued by him now more than I ever have been before in the past, seeing that this guy is getting the kind of reps and listening to Ron talk about him and how this guy is an athlete and how they really like some of the things that he is doing. So thank you for bringing that up. And we'll still talk about him a little bit later on in the show as well. But thank you for the super chat, Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Got another super chat. This one from Door Gunner. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Door Gunner. Greatly appreciate you. My man Door Gunner writes, best and worst offseason ever. Definitely not the best offseason. It's one of the better ones in recent memory because we got rid of any offseason that you get rid of Bruce Allen and almost get rid of Dan is a hell of an offseason. But there's a lot of shit that came with this offseason as well. You know, the name change, just the name change alone stops this from even coming close to being the best offseason ever. But if you, and this is what I talk about with the Stockholm syndrome that we have as Washington football team fans, because we've been subjected to so much as a fan base. I remember somebody saying a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago or so, saying, we need to be paid as fans of this team because we go through so much. It's like a work day every day with this team. They're not lying. We go through so much as a fan base that because we go through all of the things and we've hit some super rock bottoms, that anytime we get a little bit of excitement, all of a sudden we overhype it because of the things that we've been through. There, in no way, shape, or form is this the best offseason ever. All right? This could easily be the worst for some, especially if you were really attached to the name. You could also look at all the things that this organization has gone through, from scandals to Darius guys to all of the things, to finding out that, you know, your head coach has cancer tonight. It's a lot of things that this organization has went through in terms of changes and things of that nature this offseason that could allow you to feel like this was the worst offseason. But we've had plenty of really bad off seasons too with this organization. I'm not going to sensationalize all the things that have gone down this year. It's just been a lot. I will say that this offseason has been a lot. All the things that we've gone through this offseason alone, you could stretch this out and have this go through, have an organization go through all the things we went through in a 3-month period in a 5-year stretch. You know, that's how many items have come out. It seems like something new comes out every week about this team, whether you're talking about, you know, Snyder feeling like one of the minority owners. It's like a big ass soap opera. Like, you know, he feels like one of the minority owners was behind all of the rumors that were being, the salacious rumors at that were being slung around on socials, trying to get him out as the majority owner. Which was a story that was released last week, right before I came on Thursday. You know, this week we hire the first black team president in NFL history in Jason Wright. You know, something is, and that was a good move. It was the right move. You see what I did there? But there's always something with this organization. So while I get where you're coming from, there's a lot going on. I think the best is too strong of a word. The worst is too strong of a word, even though if you're we're a massive supporter of the name and we're really attached to it. Maybe this is the worst offseason. This is the worst thing that could have happened. But at the end of the day, I think it's a combination of the two, which makes it another crazy offseason. I'll categorize it as another busy and interesting offseason for the Washington football team. The fact that we're no longer saying Redskins and now saying Washington football team just tells you how crazy this offseason has been for this franchise. This offseason, it's been crazy. It's been a whirlwind. I can definitely assure you of that. Thank you for the super chat, Door Gunner. Got another super chat. This one from CGM87. Thank you for the super chat, CGM87. Greatly appreciate you. CGM87 writes, very upset to hear about Ron's cancer. Glad it's early stages, but worried, especially during COVID. I like he said he's going to be cranky, so don't piss him off. I like that as well. I like a little bit of sense of humor in a time where it can be a little bit hard to have a sense of humor. That's why I just love Ron Rivera, man. In the face of all of this adversity, he's done nothing but instill confidence in us as a fan base. He's done nothing but instill confidence in his players. I just love Ron Rivera. I love his temperament. I love the message that he's spreading. And that's why I said I can't imagine another guy being our coach at this time. And just, he's the right man for the job at the right time. And so I'm upset to hear about this as well. But as you said very eloquently, Glad that it's in the early stages. Glad that it's a very treatable and curable form. And hopefully that is exactly what happens, that they treat it quickly. He's cured of it, and he's able to get back to business as usual. And I love the fact, like you said, that he said he's going to be a little cranky. I did read that he's going to be a little bit cranky, so don't piss him off. And, and everybody got a little chuckle out of that in a time like this where attention was a little high. You hear that, a guy that you're going to be covering, if you're one of the media members, has cancer. That's rough, and he was able to kind of break that ice a bit with that line. So, it's a tough situation, but, if anybody can pull through it, if anybody can, kind of swat this out of the way, I think it's our guy Ron, man. And nothing changes here. It's Ron's plan. And until we're going to ride the wheels till they fall off, man. And I'm hoping that he's here for the long haul. If Jay Gruden can get 6 years here with this organization, Ron should be able to get 10 years minimum. All right. That's the way I view it. But we'll see what happens. But I'm excited for the upcoming season and Ron Rivera moving forward. And so I need them to, selfishly, I need him to be healthy. Selfishly, I need him to be healthy. All right. This thing doesn't work without him. All right. All of this coach-centric stuff and none of this works without Ron Rivera. He's the centerpiece to all of this. So I need him to be right physically. So selfishly, I need him to get right. So I'm glad to hear that it's a very treatable form and they found it very early. Now I just need them to do something about it. So I'm with you, CGM. Very upset, but at the same time, I'm really enthused that they found it early, it's treatable, and that he should be able to bounce back from this more likely than not. Again, never want to downplay cancer. That's not how I operate, not how I roll. Thank you for the super chat, CGM87. Barrett Downing, thank you for the super chat, BD. As always, greatly appreciate you, BD. Thank you for the super chat. My man Barrett writes, prayers go out to Ron. Lost my mother to the sea, so praying for him. Love your show, Lou. Thank you so much, BD. And my condolences to you and your family. Don't know how long ago that was, but condolences go out to you and your family, man. That's a tough thing to have to go through. And I wouldn't wish it on anybody. I was close to someone that passed away from cancer as well. So I know the struggle there. The sea sucks. It really does. It's a sumbitch, and so wouldn't wish it on anybody. And speedy recovery for Ron. Prayers go out to him and his family, and I hope that this situation can be resolved fairly quickly. Thank you for the super chat as always, Barrett Downing. We're all praying for Coach Rivera. Got another super chat. This one is from Trevor Patch. Trevor writes, Trey Quinn. Let me make sure I didn't skip anybody. Okay. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Trevor Patch, who writes, Trey Quinn makes the team as the true-handed special teams return man. Love every interview with Jason Wright. Might actually attend a game when possible. So let's tackle this two-parter by first talking about Trey Quinn. I don't know if they need to do that with him anymore. I feel like there are too many guys on this team that are athletically gifted that give you more as a punt returner than Trey Quinn. That was a Jay Gruden thing. He had every right to be scarred because of what Jamison Crowder did his last year here in Washington, where he fumbled about 4 punts and cost us that. He single-handedly cost us the Cowboys game on a Thursday night. And so he was scarred by Jamison Crowder, and so he just wanted somebody back there that would catch the goddamn football. Ron Rivera shouldn't be subscribing to that theory of just get a guy back there that can catch it. No, we want a guy that can not only catch it, but do something when he has it. Trey Quinn was looking for a nice, soft place to lay down on the turf, or he was looking for the first exit ramp to the sidelines so that he didn't get hit back there. That's not what I want back there. I want a guy because, look, we don't know how good or how bad the offense is going to be. We don't know how good or bad the defense is going to be. We want every opportunity to either shorten the field or score on special teams that we can get. Steven Sims was a revelation on kickoff returns last year. He took one to the house. He took another one deep into the other team's territory. He was exceptional last season. We want more of that. Now, I think he took two to the house last year. One might have got called back. I thought he took one to the house against the Giants and then one against the Lions. I know he took the one against the Lions for sure. Anyhow, we want that on punts as well. And I'm not saying that Steven Sims has to be that guy, but we've got athletes now. We've got enough athletes, I feel like, where we shouldn't have to put Trey Quinn back on punts. Take one of those corners, stick him back there, a guy that's an athlete that used to return kicks in college. Somebody has to be able to do it other than Trey Quinn. Just being shorthanded isn't enough. Now, if we run into the issue of, all right, because the reason Steven Sims wasn't back there reportedly last year is that he had trouble tracking the football, and so it wasn't a sure thing that he was going to catch the ball when he came back there, and that's why they just couldn't put him back there. But remember, we were beating the drum all year long. Why not? And remember, old man Callahan at one point was posed with the question, hey, why not put Steven Sims back? And it almost was like he had never thought about it. Like it was some kind of novel concept. Like it was earth-shattering to him. Like, yeah, maybe we should try that. Like, I don't know what the answer is. I know Trey Quinn isn't the answer. I do know that. So we'll see if he makes the team. I think if he makes the team, it'll just be because they like him at receiver. And, yeah, he can do some other things. And in a pinch, he can help you on specials. But that shouldn't be the reason he's on the team. As far as Jason Wright is concerned, man, I couldn't think of a more impressive debut than the one he had over these last 72 hours. From the time the announcement was made to when he jumped on Good Morning America to when he just ran the entire circuit, whether it's CNBC, Pro Football Talk. I saw this guy everywhere, and every time I became more and more enamored with him and the message that he was trying to put out. He's such a great communicator. He's so eloquent. And he does a great job of painting the picture verbally so that you can have that picture in your head vividly. I can't wait till this guy gets to work. And he said he actually doesn't start until next week. But I can't wait until he gets to work because this is a guy that I'm anxious to see all of the things that he's able to bring to the table. And keep in mind, he's going to be on the business side of things. So really what he's going to do, we shouldn't really see it from a fan perspective on the field. He'll be handling things on the business side. So if you are a fan that attends games, that's more in the vein that he'll be working on the game day experience and making things a little bit more better from that standpoint and working on some of the marketing things for this football team and the name and how they roll out the new name, if there is a new name, and the logo and all of those things. That's where he'll be working more so on. And so he won't be working on the football side of things. So we don't know. I don't really know how we'll feel his impact, if we even feel his impact as fans. But just knowing that we've got that kind of a guy, and that's part of the problem with us as Washington football fans, is that we've had so much turmoil and we've known so much going on. Most fans don't even know who's running the business side of their operations of their favorite football team. But because we've had so much dysfunction, that we knew about Brian Lafemina. We shouldn't have known who the hell Brian Lafemina was, and the fact that he was fired 6 months into his job and his whole staff was let go after they pretty much told the viewing public, hey, we haven't sold this stadium out in years, and there isn't this waiting list that the team has been lying to you about. We've got tickets available for this Sunday's game. As a matter of fact, we got Chris Cooley down at the mall handing out free tickets as we speak. We need all your support, and we're a sleeping giant, and we're trying to get this thing back to where it once was, when this was not only the best and hardest ticket to get in town, but this team was someone you could be proud of. He pretty much spilled all the beans, took all the skeletons out of the closet, and Dan and Bruce didn't like it and they fired him. We shouldn't have known who Brian LaFemina was. But because this organization is so dysfunctional, we learn about all these guys in all of their roles and their specific duties. And so I don't know if we'll even feel the impact of a Jason Wright, but it's just good to know that they're putting the right guys in place to try to turn this thing around. And they haven't done business well in this organization for a very long time. And hopefully Jason will come in and he'll be able to do the right thing moving forward. So it'll be interesting to see how many fans, when they do decide to open it back up to fans, decide to come out, man. And obviously, a lot of it will have to do with the team and how well they're performing. They play well, you'll get a lot of fans coming out. If they don't, it'll be similar to the way it was before, all of this COVID nonsense started. And it won't be a lot of Washington fans in the stands, but we will see. Thank you for the super chat. As always, Trevor Patch. Got another super chat. This one is from Just Andre. Thank you for the super chat, Just Andre. Double up. You did double up even though you retracted the last comment. Still want to thank you for the super chat earlier, so thank you for doubling up. Just Andre writes, you think Sims stays at kick/punt returner, or does Gibson take one of those spots? I assume that if Steven Sims is as big a part of the offense as I think he will be, they may try to take him off of special teams, similar to the way Terry McLaurin was supposed to be a massive special teams player last year. And right out of the gate, they realized this guy is too influential offensively to be on special teams. And they just took him straight off of special teams. So it wouldn't shock me if they looked at Steven Sims and said, no, we can't have you back on kickoff returns any longer. And instead decided to put a guy like Antonio Gibson back there. As far as punt returns are concerned, Gibson was not a punt returner in college. He was just a kick returner. And Sims wasn't a punt returner last year either. Remember, they were going to keep that guy, Wilson. He got hurt in the first or second preseason game. But remember, we thought it was Fab Moreau back there returning kicks because he was wearing 31 as well, and it turned out to be the Wilson guy. So I don't know who will be doing punts this year for the Washington football team. As far as kick return is concerned, Steven Sims could still be back there, but if they value him as greatly as I think they are going to as an offensive player, I think they'll try to reduce his role on special teams, and you'll see somebody like Antonio Gibson back on kickoff returns. Remember, he was a prolific return man in college at Memphis, so it wouldn't shock me in the least if they put him back there. I think the real question becomes who's on punt returns, because that we didn't have an answer for that last year. And someone brought up Trey Quinn tonight. I hope that Trey Quinn is not the answer, because you get nothing out of Trey Quinn if you stick him back there on punt returns. There's got to be somebody. Well, and you remember, I'd much rather see if Greg Stroman ends up making his team as a corner. Stroh was a prolific punt returner at Virginia Tech. I'd love to see Stroh go back there, worst case scenario, and he was really good at it once upon a time. So we'll see what happens. I assume that they'll take Steven Sims off of punt returns, stick Antonio Gibson on kick, take Steven Sims off of kick returns, stick Antonio Gibson in his place, and then they'll have to find someone to return kickoffs for this football team, or punt returns, And I'm thinking that guy might have to be someone like Greg Stroman or one of the receivers that ultimately makes the football team. But again, time will tell and reveal all as we get closer to the season. I can't wait till that first depth chart comes out where we can really start to analyze where these guys kind of fall into place. And that'll be one of those positions that we'll look at, punt and kickoff return, who they have back there as well. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for doubling up, Just Andre. Got another super chat. This one from OKG2000. Thank you for the super chat, OKG2000. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, how's Foster doing in camp? Is he starting? So right now in camp, first of all, the fact that he's back, and we'll talk about him a little bit later on tonight. The fact that he's back and has been medically cleared is great. That's a good sign that he's trending towards, being ready to really help this team in week 1 and possibly beyond as we get closer to the season. But is he starting? He's getting starter reps, but so are 5, 6, 7, 8 different linebackers. They're really platooning the linebacker position more so than any other position. We'll talk about that a little bit later on tonight when we get to coach and players speak. But Ron really talked about that at great depth, and we keep hearing Ron talk and specifically highlight linebacker as a position where they're just moving guys around. KPL talked about it as well. I'll give you a little bit of what he had to say too. So as far as Reuben Foster is concerned, he right now is getting reps. They're monitoring him. They're going to make sure that they bring him back slowly, that they don't overwork him. But he is getting reps with the first team. He is out there. He is practicing. He is looking good. But it's a process. It is a process. That is for sure. Thank you for the super chat, OKG 2000. See if we got any more super chats. We have another super chat. This one is from Rob U, tripling up. Thank you for the super chat, Rob U. Greatly appreciate you, Rob U, who writes, Ron Darby was a very good cornerback early in his career. With this D-line and more discipline from him, could he turn into the player that he was supposed to be? Absolutely. And that's what the Washington football team is banking on, which is why they signed him in the offseason, is because, and Ron talked about Darby specifically last week when he was asked about Ronald Darby, and he said, look, this is a guy that, can play cornerback, and his skills haven't diminished any. There have been some injuries, the last few years, but his skills haven't diminished. This isn't a guy that isn't what he once was athletically, or he can't do some of the things he used to do. He's still a young man. He's a young dude. So, obviously the 1-year deal is a prove-it deal, but they think that, if put into the right positions, Ronald Darby can make some plays and really be a good corner in this league. And as you mentioned, in Buffalo early in his career, the reason the Eagles traded for him was they saw a lot in Ronald Darby. He played well early on in his career. So, the team thinks that they can get the most out of him. And Rivera said, look, this is a guy that just needs to focus on the task at hand. Too many times you watch him on tape and his eye discipline is out of whack, and that's how he gets beat. That's how he gives up big plays. If he just focuses on his luggage, he'll be fine. Essentially, and I'm paraphrasing what Ron Rivera said about Ronald Darby, but he said all of the skills are there for this guy to be good. And so you'd like to think that with the front four, and them having all that talent off the bench, in the lineup, being able to get to the quarterback, you'd like to think that we've got a bunch of guys in that secondary that can look a lot better than they have in the past, and that includes a guy like Ronald Darby. So that's a guy that they're looking at this year and hoping to get some quality snaps from. There are a bunch of veteran players on this roster that they're expecting to get, some quality snaps out of. I think another guy is Aaron Colvin that I know a lot of you didn't get to see last year. We signed him midpoint of the season. He didn't get a lot of run, but that's a guy that our DB coach, Chris Harris, highlighted a couple of weeks ago when I talked about, Chris Harris addressing the media, and he said he's excited about a guy like Aaron Colvin, and he said he really likes him. He's a veteran around a bunch of younger guys. He's a veteran that comes in and gives them a little bit of experience on what is a young football team. And that's a guy that I think could easily make this football team too. Do not discount Aaron Colvin and what he's capable of doing. He just 3 years ago, he was one of the best slot corners in all of football. He didn't just forget how to play football. And it's not like he's 33 years old. He's still a young football player. For whatever reason, he fell out of favor in Houston when his contract was up in Jacksonville. He was regarded as one of the top nickels in the league. He goes to Houston, and for whatever reason, things don't work there, and now he's here, and I'm anxious to see what happens with him. And I really think that Aaron Colvin can ball. And so, throw Aaron Colvin, Ronald Darby, there are a lot of guys, maybe Sean Davis, we'll see what happens with him. There are a lot of guys that you throw into that pot of guys that can play ball and at one time were viewed as really good football players that are looking to get back to that. And this might be the perfect opportunity for them. Behind that front seven, this could be a really good opportunity for a lot of guys in that secondary, not just Ronald Darby, but definitely Ronald Darby is a guy that was good in his career early on, has fallen on some hard times with injuries and some inconsistent play, and now he's looking to get back on track, and hopefully he's able to do that here with this football team, because if he's playing well, that means the secondary is probably playing well, and if they're playing well and we're getting some play up front, that means the defense is playing well. And if the defense is playing well, that means we got a shot week in, week out to win ball games. So looking forward to seeing how the secondary is able to play off of the front seven. If the front seven is as good, as dominant as advertised, a lot of people are going to benefit, and maybe Ron Darby is one of those guys. Thank you for the super chat, Rob. You. Got another super chat. This one is from Kevin Dorofield. Thank you, Kevin Dorofield. My man, KD, thank you for the super chat as always. Really appreciate you, KD, who writes, heard anything on the name change? Everyone's favorite. Keep up the great work, Lou. Love and positive thoughts to Coach Ron. Absolutely. Haven't heard anything on the name. I told you, the name is a dead issue until the end of the season. So you're not going to hear anything on the name. And that's the right way. That's the way it should be. I told you this before they came to the conclusion of going with the Washington football team for the entire year. I told you when we were still in name limbo and didn't know if they were going to change the name quickly to something else or come up with a placeholder like Washington football team. We hope it's a placeholder at least. I told you guys prior to that, if I were the team, I would just go with, Washington football club or whatever, Washington football team, whatever they decide, and go with that and have that be the placeholder for the entire year and just say, hey, issue a statement. Look, we're going to go with this for the entire 2020 season. We'll reevaluate where we are after the season's done, and that's when you'll get a new name if we decide to change it. And that's what they've done. Like I said, throughout this process, they've taken all of the right steps. It isn't often we get to say that about this organization. But through all the moves that they've done for the most part, whether it's the name or coming out with the statement that we're going to roll with this name for the entire year, the helmets, the uniforms, everything has been a slam dunk across the board. Hiring Julie Donaldson, look, I think she's doing a really solid job. I don't necessarily love all of the changes that have been made. Like the booth, for example, like Chris Cooley and Doc Walker not being a part of the booth. I don't listen to the play-by-play anyway, but I just always loved Doc Walker and Chris Cooley being a part of that, because when I did get clips from the play-by-play, it was always of those two guys in particular, and those are just calming voices for Washington football fans. Doc Walker has been doing Washington football games for as long as I can remember. He's been a fixture in the mix, and they're just going in a different direction. But it seems like a lot of these organizations that aren't very good, that's what they do. You see the Wizards did the same thing. They went away from their play-by-play guy this year, and sometimes if it's not broken, you don't need to fix it. But I don't have a problem with the Julie Donaldson hire. I thought that was a good move, especially in the face of all the turmoil that was going on with the sexual misconduct things that they had going on within the organization. In the Washington Post article, they probably needed to do something to save face. Julie, not saying that she didn't earn the position, but I think that had something to do with her hire as well. But that was a good move. And, the hiring of Jason Wright, awesome move. It was like one of the best things this organization has done in a long time. So they've had a run here where they've done some really good things. And the name and having it be for the entire year is one of those things. So nothing on the name front. You're not going to hear anything about the name until the season is over. So don't look for anything on the name front anytime soon. That won't be until the season's done. And all we can do is cross our fingers and hope that they don't think it's a good idea to keep the name as the Washington football team. But Positive thoughts and prayers go up to Ron and his family. Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more there. And, all we can hope for is that process goes quickly, seamlessly, efficiently, and Coach Rivera is back at it in no time for this organization. Thank you for the super chat, Kevin Dorofield. Rob, thank you for the super chat. You're killing it tonight, Rob. As always, appreciate you, Rob. Who writes Delanie Walker as a stopgap tight end minus the injuries. I wouldn't mind that. Delanie at this point of his career would be similar to Thomas Davis on the defensive side. He's a veteran presence, very vocal, a leader in the locker room. I think Delanie Walker can still play. How well? That's the real question. How much does he have left in the tank? But again, at this point of his career and where we're at, does it make a lot of sense to bring in a Delanie Walker if you've got 6 tight ends that are all young that you think have some potential that you want to take a look at? You don't want a 36, 37, 38-year-old Delanie Walker taking away snaps from a young guy, that you want to see. Because, again, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, is seeing what these young guys can provide for you. So a guy like Delanie Walker would probably be kind of a counter against what we're doing. You know what I mean? He would be somewhat opposite of what we've been preaching this offseason. And I know that's part of why a lot of you weren't huge on the signing of the Dontrell Inman, the wide receiver that we signed, because he's a 30-year-old wide receiver, 30 plus, whatever it is at this point of his career. But we needed a veteran at the wide receiver position. We don't necessarily need a veteran at the tight end position. I don't think that's one of those positions where you have to have a veteran. We got a couple of guys that have been in the league a few years, got a little something under their belt. And so you just roll with the young guys and see what we have, because that's a position that potentially could be purged if things don't go well after this season. There's a lot of young guys there, and if they don't perform well or you don't see enough promise with them, it could be a whole new tight end position group next year for this football team. I'm just going to assume that they're not looking to do much of anything at tight end unless there are injuries. I just don't see them making any moves at tight end to bring in a veteran. I think they're going to roll with the young boys and see what they have. And as I talked about earlier, Marcus Ball is a guy that we're not talking about, but they seem to like him a lot more than we have been led to believe. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on in the show. Thank you for the super chat, Rob. Door Gunner tripling up. Thank you for the super chat, Door Gunner. Greatly appreciate you, Door Gunner. Thank you so much for tripling up. Door Gunner writes, team hit us, season ticket holders, up with extensive questionnaire about our ticket experience. Also asked opinion on new name, #Red Wolves. I've been hearing that. I heard a lot of people talk about how the team sent them an email asking them about different things, game day experience, what the new name for the team should be. I think it's a great idea to involve the fans. And that's kind of what this organization, and again, I told you, all of these things started when Terry Bateman got on board. When Terry Bateman was elevated to his position as the EVP of the business side of things and marketing, really it was the EVP of marketing, that's when you started to see a more fan-centric approach where, hey, let's involve the fans. Even if you guys don't actually have a say-so, you want to make them feel like they're more a part of the decision-making process than in the past. And so, to me, this has nothing to do with Ron. This is all Terry Bateman. And I think he's been brilliant since he's come on board. I think it's going to become even better once Jason Wright is able to sink his teeth into what's going on the business side of things. So I think, like I said, everything they've done this offseason from an organization standpoint has pretty much been spot on. They've done some really good things. They're still making some mistakes here and there with the way that they're handling certain things. But as far as hires are concerned, I feel like a lot of the right people are in the right places in this organization to start turning this thing around and making this a respectable outfit once again. And so I think not only on the field with Ron Rivera and company, Kyle Smith and all those guys getting the right players here, coaching them up, not only is the product on the field going to get better, I think the product off the field is slowly going to get better as well. And if you can put the two together, all of a sudden you have a real, live, breathing, healthy organization here in the nation's capital, something we haven't had for God knows how long. So, and this predates Daniel Snyder's tenure. Okay, this thing was not healthy. Once Jack Kent Cooke died, and he didn't leave the stadium, he didn't leave the team ownership to his son. This shit went downhill, and this thing was in turmoil for a while. So this has not been healthy prior to Daniel Snyder. It's just gotten even worse since he's taken over. So we're dying for stability. We're dying for consistency on and off the field, and we're heading in that direction. But again, time will tell if all of these moves that have been made, which seem to be the right ones in the moment, are actually the right decisions or not. Thank you for the super chat, Door Gunner. See if we got any more super chats. Yes, we do have more super chats. Got another one here from Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Thank you for the super chat and double up. Thank you for doubling up. Mr. Laughing My Head Off, greatly appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat once again, Mr. Laughing My Head Off, who writes, yo, I was the same guy who told you about Ball being on the roster a month or two ago. Nobody knew about him, and if he wasn't the first free agent signed, he was one of the first. So it was you. Okay, I wasn't sure who it was. I just remember somebody bringing up Marcus Ball and me pretty much dismissing them. Not dismissing them, but like, yeah, okay, run along, Marcus Ball, that's cool. And you know, the funny thing was you brought him up. And you said, yo, don't forget about Marcus Ball. He was one of the first guys they signed. And that is a fact. That was one of the quiet signings that they made as soon as they got here. Ron and company got here that kind of got lost in the sauce because free agency hadn't started yet. But he wasn't, you know, he was available for signing because he wasn't on an NFL roster. So he was capable of being signed. And Ron just quietly brought him on board. It wasn't one of those signings that was highly touted. We didn't talk about it because obviously this guy hasn't had much experience in the league, so nobody knew about him. And it went under the radar, and you were the one that brought him up. So I want to thank you for bringing him up. And you're being somewhat validated now. Now, he hasn't made the team yet, but the fact that you brought him up then means you knew something that most of us didn't. And the fact that, and you said, look, don't sleep on this guy. And, you know, at the tight end position, and I think when you had brought him up prior to me actually breaking down the tight end position as a whole. As I went back to look at the tight end position, I said, look, don't sleep on any of these guys. And I think there were about 7 or 8 tight ends. Caleb Wilson was another guy that I was intrigued by from UCLA that was in the league that had floated around a bit. Marcus Ball was a guy that I talked about, had been in Carolina with Ron Rivera and company. So him coming over was something that you could not sleep on. And I think I referenced that multiple times when I was talking about him. And then I just talked about all the tight ends. And I said, look, this is a group. We have no idea what's going to take place. We are in the dark about the tight end position probably more so than any other position on this roster. We have no idea what they're going to do at tight end. So you couldn't discount any of these guys, and you were the first one to bring up Marcus Ball. So, again, kudos to you. Now, he hasn't made the football team yet, so you can't get all the credit yet, but you were ahead of the game. So I definitely want to give you some love here and I didn't remember who it was, so I'm glad you brought it up. So I know it was you that brought him up because, I had no idea of what his standing was going to be in terms of the tight end position in the pecking order. But it seems to be that he's getting a lot more reps than I anticipated. And this is a guy that you cannot overlook when you start talking about roster spots. You know, when we start talking 53-man roster, the assumption was Thad Moss is going to make this football team. Jeremy Sprinkle, or remember, this is always has been my position. It's Thad Moss, it's Logan Thomas, and then Jeremy Sprinkle and Hale Hinches are going to battle it out for the third and final tight end position spot. I have absolutely no idea. They brought in Richard Rodgers as well. Do not discount him. There's too many tight ends to really know what the hell is going on. And Marcus Ball has officially thrown his name in the hat as a guy that you need to be aware of at the tight end position. So I wanted to thank you for bringing that up, because you were absolutely spot on Marcus Ball. And really you were spot on a full month or two prior to anybody else even being on the trail of a Marcus Ball. So shout out to Mr. Laughing My Head Off for getting that one earlier than anybody else. Big ups to Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Thank you for that super chat once again. Got another super chat. Double up. Got another super chat. Thank you for doubling up, Brandon Brantley. Greatly appreciate you, Brandon. Brandon writes, Lou, you think this team needs a gadget player like a Brandon Banks again? Well, they got a bunch of guys that they can move around and use in that same vein. We saw Steven Sims pretty much be a Brandon Banks type of player, except he could actually play offense and Brandon Banks could never play offense. So Steven Sims is definitely that guy. They're going to use Steven Sims similar to the way the 49ers used Deebo Samuel, similar to the way, and this is probably a more apt comparison, is the way the Panthers used Curtis Samuel last year with Scott Turner, and just a guy you move around all over the football field, get him out in space where he can be dangerous. But don't forget about Antonio Gibson. He's another guy that you can do that with. So I don't think this team necessarily needs a gadget player. I think they've got a couple of guys that can fill that role, but gadget player is it's such a disparaging term if you're looking to be more than that. You know, I think last year Steven Sims was okay initially with being a gadget player because he just was okay with being on the roster. He could care less how he was being used. He was undrafted. He was fighting, scratching, clawing, trying to make this football team, and he ultimately did as a special teams and / gadget guy. But as he started to look at the makeup of this team, he said, why can't I have a bigger role? I don't need to just be a gadget guy. I feel like I can help this team not only on special teams, I can help this team at receiver as well. And by season's end, he was viewed in a much different light. So I think he would not feel comfortable with being labeled a gadget guy. I think he's more than that. And same with Antonio Gibson. He would be somewhat of a gadget guy, but I think he's more than that because of all the things he brings to the table, not only running the football out of the backfield, and reportedly he had a couple of big runs, including one that popped for a touchdown today at practice. So he's not only just going to be a guy that they move around in space, but he's also a guy that can double as a receiver as well. So there's a lot of things that you can do with an Antonio Gibson. So I don't think this team needs a gadget player because they got several guys that can fill that void and more. So I don't think this team needs a gadget player. I think they've got guys that can fill that role, that can do a multitude of things and still actually be more productive than just a gadget guy would, like a Brandon Banks was once upon a time. So thank you for that super chat, Brandon Brantley. Got another super chat, this one from Just Andre. Thank you for the super chat and tripling up, Just Andre. Greatly appreciate you. Just Andre writes, I think Isaiah Wright becomes punt returner. That's another guy that I haven't considered. Man, let me say something about Isaiah Wright. Man, is he big. He's a big guy. And, you know, when you hear 6'2", 220, 230, whatever he is, you say, okay, cool. I watched him on film. He didn't look as big. I saw him he looked like a tight end at camp. He's massive. He's a big guy, man. God damn, he's big. He's a thick dude. So, and he's an athlete, you know, and so that's another guy. That's a great point, Just Andre. Thank you for bringing that up that I didn't consider because, you know, I still haven't factored him into making his football team. But, and it's going to be really hard this year because we're not going to see preseason games. Normally, that's where we're really exposed to the Isaiah Wrights of the world. That's where we were exposed to Steven Sims last year. That's when you start to learn some of these guys that were undrafted or some of these guys that went in the later rounds. I'm dying to see Jordan Brailford on the field. I heard he flashed at practice today, was able to beat Cornelius Lucas for a sack today. I'm dying to see Jordan Brailford on the field. We really haven't seen him. He was a draft pick 2 years ago. And so missed all of last year. We didn't get to see him in the preseason the year prior with an injury. I'm dying to see Jordan Brailford on the field. And I'm not going to see Jordan Brailford because more likely than not, he's going to be on the practice squad again. And so I want to see some of these guys play in games. And a guy like Isaiah Wright would have been a great example of someone that I would love to see on the field so I can get a better understanding of the kind of value he could potentially bring to the football team. And because I'm discounting that right now because I didn't see enough on tape and there wasn't enough intrigue there that makes me feel like this is a guy that we need to have on the 53-man roster. I could be wrong, and if I could see him on the field, maybe I'd get a better understanding of what this guy brings to the table. But you're right. If he makes this football team, he's another candidate as a punt returner. And he was dynamic at Temple as a return man as well. So that's definitely a guy that could make the team just based off of his special teams prowess. He's a hell of a special teams player to begin with. And then you add in the fact that he could also give you some special teams relief as a punt returner, potentially, maybe even a kickoff return man too. That's something else that's intriguing, and that may be his route to making this roster. So yeah, thank you for reminding me of Isaiah Wright. That is another guy that you cannot sleep on as well. Thank you for that comment, Just Andre. Got another super chat from DMV Sports 3. Thank you for the super chat, DMV Sports 3. Greatly appreciate you. DMV Sports 3 writes, let's remember these guys haven't had any off-season workouts yet. Don't get excited about the rust. And that's what I'm talking about. It's a lot of guys that are going to struggle early on. There are going to be some injuries here and there because this is the first time these guys have had contact in a really long time. So there's a lot that you're going to hear out of camp, some of it positive, some of it negative. But this is why the lack of preseason games, and I can't stress this enough, this is why this is going to be so important this year. And that's why it's going to make this offseason so different. Every year we talk about, we don't need 4 preseason games. And why do they need to do this? This is why you need preseason games. You may not need 4 of them. All right. You could reduce it to 3, maybe even 2, but you need preseason. And teams like ours in particular, the Chiefs don't need preseason. You know, the Ravens may not need preseason. You know, the good teams in the league may be able to get by without having preseason reps. You know, but we need preseason. We are a young football team. Our guys need as many reps as possible. And we're not going to get that opportunity. So practice is imperative. And Rivera has talked about practicing with tempo, and they did that this week. And it was good to hear a lot of the guys say that, you know, it went well and they were very receptive to it. But Rivera has always been about replicating game speed. And so tempo is key. Even if you're changing stations, you know, changing from your station to groups, you might be in individual work, or you may be in your positional drills to team drills. We need to sprint. We need to jog between those. We don't need to walk. And so it's just a different mindset. And there's a lot of things that you have to take into consideration when you hear these beat reporters giving us reports and updates on practice. There's a lot of things you have to take into consideration. I'm usually even keel with this stuff. I take everything with a grain of salt. I understand that this is a process, and there are going to be good days, going to be bad days. I remember last year, Jimmy Garoppolo threw 5 interceptions in practice, and everybody was going nuts. And, you know, Jimmy Garoppolo had a really good season, and his team went to the Super Bowl. And I know he wasn't the reason, but he played really well last year. A lot of people give him some flack, but he played well last year. They don't get to the Super Bowl without him playing good football. It's really simple. You know, the defense was dominant. The run game was dominant. But if Jimmy Garoppolo stunk, they don't make it all the way to the Super Bowl. And so, you know, sometimes practice can be taken out of context. And it's because of the day and age that we live in, where everything is reported on. Every single thing, every throw is dissected, and we want to know everything because we live in a news cycle that is it's so immediate. You know, I remember at one point we were living in a 30-minute news cycle. You know, now we're living in a 2-minute news cycle where news is coming every 2 minutes, and you got to refresh your Twitter, you got to refresh your IG because something else is happening. It's always something. And that's how we are looking at practice now. Oh man, Dwayne just sailed this throw over a guy's head. That's going to happen in the game. These things tend to happen, you know. Interceptions happen, batted balls happen, big plays happen, offensively, defensively. These things are going to happen. And so you can't live and die on every single snap. And that's just something to keep in mind. Thank you for the super chat, DMV Sports 3. Got another super chat. This one from King of the North, man. Thank you, King of the North, man. Can't thank you enough for your gracious donation, man. Really appreciate you, as always, holding me down. You've always been supportive, and this isn't your first time doing this either. So, man, I really do appreciate you, King of the North, who writes, tuning in late, what do you make of the bad reports coming out about the Haskins looks terrible, Alex looks great, left tackle is a mess, Antonio Gibson looks overwhelmed, and Gandy Golden is a year away from starting. Time to expect bottom 5 offense? No, and this is what the last commenter, DMV Sports 3, just kind of spoke to. So first and foremost, I talked about the offense earlier, but I'll rehash it quickly for you. These days happen in camp, and that's why I brought up Jimmy Garoppolo throwing 5 interceptions in a practice last year. These things happen. They're going to be good days in camp. They're going to be bad days in camp. The offense from J.P. Finley reported today that the offense looked terrible. Everybody was bad. But he said all quarterbacks were bad. Dwayne was bad. Kyle Allen was bad. But you also have to keep this in mind as well, King of the North. Today was a vet day. It was Veterans Day. They gave all, and honestly, I don't know why Jaron Christian gets a day off during vet day. I don't know why. And like I said at the top of the show, he could be nursing something. They could have decided he needs a little bit of time off. I remember last offseason, Jaron Christian was coming off of surgery. Remember, that's part of the reason they went out and they signed Donald Penn is because remember, they had to stick your boy Eric Flowers out there at tackle because Jaron Christian wasn't ready for the start of camp last year because he was coming back from offseason surgery. I don't think that's the case this year. I could be wrong, but I think he's had a relatively quiet offseason, no surgery, has been able to work on his craft. I heard he was out working with Trent in Houston, so I'd like to think that he's coming off of a healthy offseason. That being said, for whatever reason, they decided that he needed the day off, okay? And so there was no Morgan Moses at right tackle. There was no Jaron Christian at left tackle. And the offensive line struggled mightily today, all right? So that impacts your quarterback play. When your left tackle is getting beat and he's getting pushed into your lap, Dwayne Haskins actually hit the ground today because his tackle got bull rushed into him and knocked him onto the ground. You're not supposed to be touching the quarterbacks. But when your tackle is getting his ass whooped, as Cornelius Lucas and Timon Paris were today, your quarterbacks are going to struggle. Because instead of you surveying the field and looking as to where the ball should be going, you're kind of looking down at the rush. I don't blame them. You know, my guy just got bull rushed into my lap and knocked me down. The minute I see color flash, I'm looking down. My eyes are dropping down too. So, yeah, the offense was off today. It's going to happen. Bad days are going to happen. And I also stress this too. The defense is going to be ahead of the offense because the defense, it's much easier to play defense. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, you're talking about a defensive scheme switch. So schematically, you're going from a 3-4 to a 4-3. So there are some different concepts, you know, gap fits, things of that nature, you know, hand in the dirt versus standing up in a 2-point stance. There are a lot of differences from a 3-4 to a 4-3 defense, you know, but at the same time, defense is defense. You know, there are only so many ways you can play cover 3. There's only so many ways you can play cover 2. You can play man to man. There's so, defense is defense. So they should be ahead of the offense. And I expect the offense to struggle. And I've heard that the defense rather, has had more good days than the defense or the offense. And I told you when the season starts, and I said this a month ago, and I've echoed this. When the season starts, every year the defense is usually ahead of the offense. That's usually how it goes. Now, last year was an anomaly because we saw some big numbers put up by offenses last year. Tennessee went to Cleveland last year, put up like 40-something points. The Dolphins started out the season horrendous, and everybody that played the Dolphins the first 3 weeks put up 50-plus. I think the Ravens put up 60-something points on the Dolphins week 1 last year. I think the Chiefs put up a big crooked number last year as well early in the season. But those are the anomalies. Normally, the scores are a lot lower in the first. We put up a big number early in the season last year versus the Eagles, and they put up a big number against us. But normally, the defense comes in and they have the advantage because the defense is further along than the offense. This is especially true for us because it's a brand new offense. It's a new offensive scheme. There's a bunch of moving parts. They're still trying to learn what makes Dwayne comfortable. Scott Turner, remember, this is his first full season as an offensive coordinator. He's got brand new pieces that he's learning how to utilize. They still don't know which guys are going to make up the core group of players that they're going to try to get the football to. They know about Terry McLaurin, but Ron Rivera said, look, the only guy that has been in consistently with the ones on the offensive side of the football is Terry McLaurin. The rest of the guys are filtering in and out. The guy opposite of him at receiver, the guy in the slot, the tight ends, they're all revolving doors right now. So there isn't that level of consistency. As we get closer to the season, I surmise that we'll hear about them being a lot crisper, a lot sharper, because they'll have a clearer focus and picture as to, one, who are your true number ones? What guys are we going to try to focus on getting the football to? And two, there'll be a little bit more continuity. This is the first week of padded practices. They just put the helmets on 6 days ago. They just put the pads on 3 days ago. It's okay. These things are going to happen. You had vets out today. The offensive line struggled, which meant the rest of the offense was out of sync. These things are going to happen. It's early on Antonio Gandy Golden. I heard that Antonio Gibson actually had a really good day of practice. He had 2 big runs, one including a touchdown. So, there are a lot of different things coming out of camp. You can't just run with these things. You have to understand that this is a process. All right, this is definitely going to be a process. And there are going to be growing pains with this offense this year. There will be games where we're not going to be pleased with what we see from this offense. You have to understand that right now as a fan. If you go into the season expecting them to hit the ground running and light it up every single week, you're sadly mistaken, and you're going to be disappointed when September 13 hits and we start playing these games for real. When this team hits the field, expect the offense to be a work in progress. There'll be some weeks where they'll be able to take advantage of the opposition and they'll score and they'll look great. And we'll be like, this is what we're talking about. This is what we want to see. And then there'll be weeks where we're playing against good defenses and they shut us down and we can't get it going. And in order to stay in the game, the defense is going to have to rise to the occasion, or special teams is going to have to make some plays. So understand that we're a young team. And with a young team, and this is why I talked about me being a Memphis Grizzlies fan in the NBA, there are growing pains. I've watched the Grizzlies this year grow right before my very eyes. Everyone said before the season started, we were going to be among the worst teams in the league. We were ranked 27th out of 30 teams in the NBA to finish this past season. We finished 1 spot out of the playoffs. We were right there the entire year and just missed it. If not for some injuries in the bubble, maybe we make the postseason, but that's nor here nor there. I said all of that to say this. That was a young team. There are a lot of growing pains. We turned the basketball over way too much, and that includes our superstar point guard, Ja Morant. Turns it over way too much. You saw it in the game, the playing game versus Portland. A lot of turnovers down the stretch. But you know what? You take those things because that's the growing pains that come with a young team. Same thing with this Washington football team. We're young. And I was going to stress this later, but I'll stress it now since we're talking about it. We got 5 guys on the team. I may have missed one, and I don't know how old Aaron Colvin is. He's the only guy, and I think he might be like 28, 29. We got 5 guys on this roster that are 30 years or older on this roster. That's it. We're a young football team. You won't find many teams with an aggregate age, an average age younger than us. We're a young football team, man. All right. So when you talk about young teams, you talk about mistakes. You talk about the growing pains. Those are going to come. You cannot avoid them. You can't skip steps with young teams unless you have a couple of guys. And usually, even when you have a young team and you skip some steps, it's because you still got a bunch of veterans in there helping lead the way. All right. And most likely the team's young, but you got a veteran quarterback that's a beast, you know, like a Russell Wilson or an Aaron Rodgers or a Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes is a young player. Don't forget that. He's a very young player, but he's got a lot of talented players that are veterans around him. He's got a lot of good football players around him, and like a Travis Kelce, veteran football player. All right. When you look around those guys in the backfield, veteran football players, the receiver position. Yeah. Tyreek Hill's a young guy too. But some of those other receivers, veteran football players. Samuel Watkins, a veteran football player. Like, we're a young team. I said all of that to say this. We're a young football team. Mistakes are going to be made. Guys are going to struggle at times. All right. But you've got to be able to take that, understand that those growing pains are coming, and you've got to be able to see it for what it's worth. And you got to understand that at the end of this tunnel, there's going to be a light. And if these guys continue to progress and grow as players, we're going to be able to see that light shine as bright as possible at the end of the season. And that's why I've talked ad nauseum about 2020 being a season where we just want to see growth and development. All right. You talk about bottom 5 offense. I'm not going to put that on our offense. I don't think we're going to be bottom 5 of the league. I think we're going to see growth from this team as the season progresses. Now, maybe we start out really rough and it's hard to overcome that. And maybe we end up being a bottom 7, bottom 10 offense in the league. That's possible. That's not far-fetched. But we're going to see growth from this football team. We're going to see growth from Dwayne. We're going to see growth from Antonio Gibson. We're going to see growth from Antonio Gandy Golden. We're going to see growth from the young tight ends, whomever those guys end up being. All of them are young. We don't have any veteran tight ends on this football team. Logan Thomas is the most veteran tight end that we have. Him and Richard Rodgers. Think about that for a second. Richard Rodgers might have been in the league all of 6 or 7 years. Logan Thomas has been in the league 5 years max. These are veterans for us. That's how young this team is. So you've got to understand that the growing pains that are associated with young teams are going to come. The thing as a fan you have to understand, and I actually love this process. I don't like the quick fix. I can't stand the get rich quick schemes. I don't want this team to be good. When teams try to buy a Super Bowl, remember the 2000 Redskins, remember the Dream Team Eagles, that shit never works. You can't buy a Super Bowl. You can't buy playoff victories. What you can do is build them. And the good teams in the league, they build through the draft and they add players. I always say you build through the draft, you supplement through free agency. The good teams do it the right way. I love this process. I love seeing a young team grow up. You have more attachment to a team than when you go out and get a hired gun and you bring in a guy that's a veteran and you bring in this guy that's a veteran and that, because you can't call it your own. This team, if they grow up the right way before our eyes, Terry McLaurin will be homegrown product. Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Cole Holcomb. These are all homegrown products. Guys we drafted and watched grow and develop in front of our eyes. It makes it that much special. Steven Sims, undrafted to a star potentially in this league. That's what you're rooting for if you're a fan. The guys that you can cling to and say, we built that dude. We helped foster his growth and development, and we got to see it all happen over the span of 3 years, and now we're reaping the benefits of this guy playing exceptional football. I love this process because if it's done correctly, it will lead to big things that you'll be able to bask in down the road. So I don't look at it all gloom and doom. Like, oh my God, camp is going terrible and guys are struggling and we're going to be a bottom 5 offense. Don't overreact. That's the best thing I can tell you. And understand, too, that this is going to be a process. I've been telling you this for a very long time. Some of you hear it, but you're not quite listening, all right? And there are two different things. You can hear something audibly. So you can hear a noise, but you're not listening. I'm talking to you. You hear me, but are you listening? This is a process, guys and gals. This is a process. And there will be growing pains. And we will suffer through some of this. But we'll come out better. If this is done correctly, we will come out better for it, because of it, at the end. And that's what you should be hoping for as fans. I can tell you, in the 21 years Daniel Snyder has owned this team, we've never had a young nucleus quite like this. I take that back. Let me walk that statement back, because I thought we were trending in this same direction right around 04 through 08. 07 really was the Gibbs years. When you had Chris Cooley, you had Sean Taylor, you had LaRon Landry, you had Marcus Washington. There was a nucleus there. LeVar Arrington was still there at the very beginning of that run. There was a nucleus there that I thought we could build around defensively. Offense, I thought we had a long way to go, but we went out and got Santana Moss, and Chris Cooley was coming of age, and you saw the pieces on the offensive side. We could never find that receiver number 2. We went through the Taylor Jacobs of the world and those guys. I know you remember those guys. We could never find, remember we went out and signed David Patton. We could never find Randall L. We could never find wide receiver 2. We struggled with that. All right. But I felt like we were building the nucleus there for a young team. But even a lot of those guys were veterans. I just talked about Santana Moss. He was a young guy still when we got him from the Jets. But, Clinton Portis was another young guy that I thought we could build around. But those guys weren't all homegrown products. These guys are. So this feels different. And I love it. I love this process, and I think it's going to be a really good one when it's all said and done. So I'm not doom and gloom, King of the North. Everything's not going to be all flowers and everything's not going to be all peaches and cream. Everything's not going to be all ice cream and candy and gumdrops and, it's not going to be Alice in Wonderland. All right. This isn't, you don't just overnight get good. It's a process. And these are the things you go through, but I'm excited to watch this process unfold. So thank you for the super chat, King of the North. I really appreciate you, man. Thank you once again. Got another super chat here from Cooper Gorman. Thank you for the super chat, Cooper Gorman. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat, Cooper Gorman, who writes, Lou, did you see the breaking news about Ron Rivera diagnosed with lymph node cancer? Prayers up for Rivera. Yeah, we talked about that tonight already. Ron Rivera was diagnosed with cancer. He did talk to his team, address them. It is out. It is news. And we talked about, that this is a very treatable form of cancer. It's curable. They feel like they caught it very early in its stages, and they feel like they can, really get him back to health 100% very quickly. So we don't know what the process is, what they'll do, how things will go, how much time he will miss, if any, who will take over. All of those things will be coming out, I would assume, in the coming days. But it was definitely breaking news tonight on the stream for sure. Thank you for the super chat, Cooper Gorman. Got another super chat. This one is from, let's see what we got. This one is from, coming down the list. I think we're all caught up now. This one is from Martin Matthews. Thank you for the super chat, Martin Matthews. Thank you. Greatly appreciate you, Martin Matthews. As always, Double M, appreciate you, who writes, hey, Louie, hope Troy takes that safety spot, but have you heard anything about Orchard yet? I've seen Orchard out there. I've seen him get some reps. he was the one getting a lot of the reps that was vacated by Ryan Anderson. Remember, Anderson missed a couple of days early in the week with an injury. He came back to practice on Wednesday. He missed Monday and Tuesday, did Ryan Anderson. And so he came back to practice on Wednesday. And so Orchard was the one getting those reps at practice. And once Ryan Anderson came back, Orchard's first team reps started to decrease a bit. But he's been solid. I haven't heard much from Orchard in camp, but he's been solid. Troy Apke is the guy we talked about earlier. I talked about him yesterday on the training camp coverage. Got to wipe the memory bank clean. He's one of those guys similar to Jaron Christian that you just got to give another opportunity to. Greg Stroman is a guy that I added to that list tonight after hearing how he's been performing in camp thus far. Had an interception, should have had another one, had a dropped interception and an interception today in practice. So he's a guy that could easily make this team. And I've heard Greg Stroman's name mentioned not only by his positional coach, Chris Harris, but also by Ron Rivera as well. So Greg Stroman is a guy that has been an afterthought with this organization. And as fans, I think we put Greg Stroman on the back burner, but Stro may be back in business with this new administration. So we will see. But Apke is a guy that I talked about. Clear the slate. Give him another opportunity to prove that he can get it done. I've always been a Troy Apke fan because I knew somebody had to be on his side because most of the fans, first of all, didn't like how early he was selected. And yes, he was overdrafted by this football team when he was selected. But I knew he was going to need some people in his corner because fans, after him being selected in the third round and him not really providing dividends and giving value to that third round pick, they were going to turn on him rather quickly, and they have. So I've been in his corner. I've wanted to see good. I thought he did some good things. I remember the Dolphins game was one of his best games last season where he played well, and it actually helped in a Redskins win at the time. But I'm rooting for Troy Apke as well. He's still got some things he's got to get better at, but it seems like they're trying to instill confidence in him, and that's something that he needs. He needs to understand it. He can do this at this level, and I think they're trying to put him in positions to be successful. But they've done that with all the guys. DeShazer Everett has gotten reps. So has Sean Davis. So it's not just Troy Apke back there, but he's been getting more of the first-team reps than the other safeties. So we'll see if that continues as camp continues to progress. Thank you for the super chat, Double M. Greatly appreciate you. Got another super chat from OKG 2000. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, OKG 2000. Greatly appreciate you. Who just writes, Breonna Taylor. Never forget Breonna Taylor, and we still would like to see something done in that situation. I saw LeBron with a hat on the other night, a Make America Great Again hat that he had X'd out. He had Make America, then he X'd out Great Again and had arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor. So never forget Breonna Taylor. Thank you for that super chat, OKG 2000. Chris Abernathy, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Chris Abernathy. My man Chris writes, what up, Lou? Been following your work for about 4+ years now. Thank you for that, Chris. Really appreciate you, man. Greatly appreciate you for that. Keep doing your thing, brother. Just wanted to give you a shout out, man. I appreciate you, Chris. Thank you so much, man. Means a lot to me that you've been following me for as long as you have. And I look forward to chopping it up with you in the future for many, many years to come. Thank you for the support over the years. Got another super chat from my man Double M. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Double M. As always, stranger to the program. Greatly appreciate you, Martin Matthews, who writes, hey, Louie, I have a prediction. We are going to keep 3 or 4 tight ends. Sprinkle will be cut. The remaining tight ends will be on the practice squad. Also, have you heard anything about cornerback Danny Johnson? Now, that is a name I have not heard about. I've heard about a bunch of corners, and Danny Johnson has not been one of them. And I've heard a lot of different names in camp, and his hasn't been one of them. So I don't know what's going on with Danny Johnson. You remember he was all the rave 2 years ago at camp. Oh my God! Remember he made the team out of nowhere. His name, came up in camp. He was tearing it up. He did some good things in the preseason. He ended up making the football team, but it never really manifested itself on game days during the season. He ended up getting hurt, and really haven't heard much from Danny Johnson these past couple seasons. So I haven't heard much of anything out of Danny Johnson in camp thus far. But it's early, still early. Even though we're 20 some odd days into camp, I told you camp really didn't begin until they started putting on the pads and started having some real contact. Now we're going to start hearing some things. Now is when real training camp begins. And so haven't heard anything about Danny Johnson to this point. Sprinkle getting cut is interesting. I don't think he's going to be cut, but again, they brought in some guys to compete, and it'll be interesting. And this is why not having preseason is such a killer as a fan. They got all the film they need. They get every single film of practice cut up. They watch these guys individually. They get to see what they got going on, and so they're fine. I'm talking about from a fan perspective. This is killing us because we'd be able to project whether a Sprinkle or a Richard Rodgers or a Hale Hinches is doing enough in these games to maybe warrant a second or a third look and potentially make the football team. We're not going to have that this year. We really don't know what the hell is going on with reps. We can only surmise. We can only listen to what people are reporting. And these reporters are only going to be out there for 2 weeks, and then they're going to be limited as to how often they can be out there. And so we really won't know a lot of what's going on behind the scenes at Redskins Park. So it's really interesting to see what's going to happen. But thank you for the super chat, Martin Matthews. Got another super chat. This one is from DMV Sports 3. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. DMV Sports 3. Greatly appreciate you. DMV Sports 3 writes, makes even more sense that it was vet day. Poor play plus rust. Got to have all the info for complete understanding. Don't get excited. So exactly, when you don't have the proper context, when you don't take all of those things into consideration, you can jump to conclusions. But even if Morgan Moses and Jaron Christian were out there and the line didn't struggle and just Dwayne Haskins and the quarterbacks struggled and the receivers had a rough go of it and it was just a poor day offensively, those happen too. So every day isn't going to be a tremendous day for the offense. And Haskins looked sharp and the offense was clicking on all cylinders. You're not going to get that every day. Just like the defense isn't going to be sharp. Somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. The defense and the offense can't both win simultaneously. That's not how it works. You can't say, man, the defense had a great day, but the offense had a great day too. No, the defense had a great day at the offense's expense and vice versa. If the offense had a great day, that means the defense didn't. So that's how this thing goes. Defense is going to win certain days. Offense is going to win some days. And you got to be able to take that with a grain of salt and understand that it's all in the spirit of everybody getting better. Iron sharpens iron. And if the offense isn't very good and the defense is just feasting off of it, that's not really making the defense that much better. They're just gaining confidence, but it's not making them better because when good teams actually come in front of them, they're going to think it's going to be as easy as playing against our offense. So we need our offense to play well. We need the defense to play well because we need them to make each other better. We need them to push one another. Thank you for the super chat, DMV Sports 3. Got another super chat. This one from Extra Squaw. Thank you for the super chat, Extra Squaw. Greatly appreciate you. Extra Squaw writes, I really don't like the O-line. I consider the right side to be above average. At least we have no idea about our left side. I just want to get a proper evaluation on Haskins to see if he is the guy. So here's the thing about the offensive line. And I try to put you guys at ease, but I understand your gripe and your concern up front because remember, we had the same comment. This is like Groundhog's Day. We had the same exact conversation last year. All right, so take out left tackle battle, insert Trent Williams not at camp. What are we going to do on the left side? Oh my God, got a left guard battle with Wes Martin and Wes Schweitzer. Doesn't get you excited. Last year it was, oh my God, Eric Flowers is going to get our quarterback killed, whomever is back there at left guard. We were so concerned with the left side, and honestly, the left side of the offensive line was more consistent than the right side was last year. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen this year, but Morgan Moses had an up and down year, dealt with some injuries. Brandon Scherf, same thing, dealt with some injuries, up and down season, missed the back half of the season. They struggled on the right side. To put it mildly, they weren't themselves last year on the right side. We're hoping for a bounce back year. Both of them have had strong off seasons. They're in great shape. I'm looking for big things from those two. I'm not worried about the right side of the offensive line like some of you may be out there. But if you're really concerned about the line, your gripe is on the left side. Left tackle is really important. I understand your angst there. But I feel good about Wes Martin at left guard. And I think he's going to lock that left guard position up. Lock it up. Lock it up. So I'm not worried about, I think 4 out of the 5 offensive line positions are spoken for. Left tackle is the one that we're all concerned about. And they're going to figure it out. You know, whether it's Sadiq Charles, it's Cornelius Lucas, or it's Jaron Christian, they're going to figure it out. And whomever they put out there, I think they're going to do an adequate enough job of protecting Dwayne and getting the job done. And if they don't, I think it'll be the next man up. And if they don't have the guy out of these 3 guys that can help us this year, because maybe Sadiq Charles isn't ready in his rookie season, but maybe he's ready next year. If that guy isn't here to help us this year, then you got to do some things to alter your protection scheme. You got to do some things with the tight end and the running backs, and they'll figure it out. I think we'll be able to get a real evaluation of Dwayne. But I will say this. I was watching a great play by Dwayne in practice. And he had to sidestep a defender. And you know they can't hit him in practice, so some of this stuff you got to take with a grain of salt. But it was a great play by Dwayne. He had to sidestep a defender, step up in the pocket, then maneuver towards his left, and then threw a dime down the sideline to his receiver. That's great to see, but it was also very disheartening to see Jaron Christian get beat right off the snap and force Dwayne to have to then dip his shoulder first to avoid contact, step up, and then slide. Immediate pressure, too. So there's some concern there, and there should be. However, they'll figure it out. There's still plenty of time. They'll figure out ways. Look, this isn't the only team that has had issues up front potentially. Teams find ways to adjust. That's what you do. That's what this league is about. It's about adaptability. All right, so you got an issue at left tackle. Can't fix it now. It's too late. You figure it out. Whether it's a tight end or you double team or you chip on the way out, they'll figure it out. We'll be okay. I'm convinced. If we had 3 out of our 5 offensive line positions up for grabs and up in the air and we were undecided, then I would be nervous. Then I would be scared. But the fact that we've only got 2, and I really think it's down to 1 at this point, I'm not as concerned as some of you are. But I get your anxiety. I do. I understand it. Thank you for the super chat. Super or extra squaw. Got another super chat. This one is from, see if we do have another super chat. Got another super chat. This one is from, let's see. That was the last one. And here's the next one from Brian Haynes. Thank you for the super chat, Brian Haynes. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat. Brian writes, "Hey Lou, have you heard about Ron Rivera telling his team about lymph node cancer? I'm really praying for him. From what I heard, it was caught early." Yeah, we talked about that already numerous times. The news was broken here essentially by one of the commenters earlier in the show that alerted me. I had no idea, so I went to the phone, was able to confirm. And Adam Schefter was tweeting about it. J.P. Finley was tweeting about it. I read a passage from the update from the My Teams app that pretty much said they feel like they caught it early, that it's very treatable and curable. That's all we know right now. More information will come out as to how they're going to go about handling this. But, yeah, we've talked about it. We've sent our prayers up to Rivera and his family. And sounds like he's in good spirits. He even made a joke that, don't piss him off. He'll be a little ornery now. So I feel good about, where he is with that situation. Hopefully, like I said earlier, it's resolved quickly and he can get back to living a normal life and coaching his football team, because Lord knows we need Ron Rivera. Thank you for the super chat, Brian Haynes. I think that is all the super chats for now. So let's go to coach and player speak real quick, so I can get to another topic that I want to get to, another segment before we get out of here. Coach Rivera, let's start with Coach Rivera, who spoke multiple times. Obviously, he's speaking almost after every practice, every other practice. Was intrigued by a few things. So one of the quotes that I wrote down in my notes was, Coach Rivera said, very few positions are set in our mind. All right. So that tells me that they don't really know. And that's part of the reason why you're seeing, and I think what you're seeing play out on the field is very evident. And it's a testament to the fact that they're not sure. Normally this time of the year, we can kind of, narrow down the roster to about 40, 45 guys. We're like, okay, look, it's only about 8 roster spots up for grabs. And then we could kind of talk about the positional battles and then the few spots that are actually up for grabs. Like, we have no idea this year. Absolutely zero. We don't know at the receiver position. We thought we did. We have no idea at the receiver position. We don't know if they're keeping 5. Could they possibly be keeping 6? We don't know. Same at running back. We got an idea of running back, but is it 4? Is it 5? We'll see. Tight end, is it 3? Is it 4? Who are the 3? We have no clue at all whatsoever. Offensive line, we know it's probably going to be every bit of 9, 10. All right, who are those guys? We don't know. We're not sure. Quarterback, probably confident that they're going to keep 3 quarterbacks this year. But then you get to the other side of the football, defensive line. We feel really good, whether you're talking ends or interior defensive linemen. But, who are some of those ancillary guys, especially on the edges? There's Kerrigan, there's Anderson, there's Sweat, and there's Young. That's 4. Are you only keeping 4? Are you keeping 5? Who's that 5th guy? We don't know. Same with the interior defensive line. The thought process was that, probably going to keep the ex-Florida Gator. He decided to opt out, so that you would think there's another spot available. There's Ioannidis, Settle, Payne, and Allen. Are you keeping a 5th defensive lineman? And if so, who? Because we thought Caleb Brantley was going to be a 5th guy. Well, are they keeping 4 or are they going to keep 5? And if so, who's the 5th guy? Don't know. Linebackers, that's the position. And Rivera said very few positions set in our minds. And then he went to linebacker, immediately went to linebacker and said different groups on the field, especially at linebacker. This is like the 3rd time I've told you Ron Rivera talking about the linebacker position in particular and saying, look, we got so much diversity, so much depth at linebacker that we don't even know what to do with it. We're putting these guys in. We're cycling them in and out of the first team reps. So there's just so much depth at linebacker, so much diversity that they don't know. So we don't know. So this roster is it's crazy. So you're seeing that all the time. Rivera also said, watching guys very closely coming off injuries, he made it a point to reference 3 guys in particular, Reuben Foster, Alex Smith, and Bryce Love. He said, look, we're really going to be monitoring those guys' snaps. There'll be some days off for those guys. We just want to make sure we bring those guys back responsibly. So, again, we talked about Bryce Love earlier in the show, but, and how a lot of fans, after the Geist situation and his release, have automatically gone straight to Bryce Love, and they're looking for big things from Bryce Love right out of the gate. And I'm here to tell you, slow your roll, all right? I want Bryce Love to be bought back in a very reasonable fashion. I want them to bring him back at a pace that allows him to get his feet wet. Remember, this guy has not played a single down in the National Football League. He has no idea the speed of the game. So it's one thing to practice. There's a totally different thing to get in there and game speed. So I'm anxious to see him play just as much as the next man, but I also want to see him brought back in a way that will allow him to be maximized come the midpoint towards the end of the season, when he should be really back to where he needs to be, legs under him and comfortable in the system. So that was interesting. He said, Rivera also said the defensive line has been super impressive thus far. They've been the standouts in camp to this point. And he kind of went down the line, talked about the ends and the interior defensive linemen. Really been impressed with them, he says. And then this was something that I loved that he said. He's going to be very vague when it comes to injuries. He says, look, guys, I'm gonna be really brutally honest with you. And he was talking to the media on one of these Zoom pressers. He said, look, I don't have to give you any information on injuries during camp, okay? So you're not going to get a lot out of me. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to play doctor. But also, I'm not looking to give the opposition a bunch of information as to what our guys are going through and what's ailing them. Anything that's a disadvantage for us is an advantage to the opposition, and I'm not looking to give that. So if I don't have to give you anything for injuries, I'm not really going to. So if a guy misses practice, he might have missed it with a lower injury, a lower extremity injury, or he might have missed it with an upper body injury. But I might not even give you that. I'll just say he missed practice with an injury. It's minor. He'll be back. And he did that essentially with Ryan Anderson and Sadiq Charles, because we still don't know what the hell is wrong with Sadiq Charles. He won't tell us. And I actually like that. Okay. These last couple of coaches gave us way too much information on injuries, and that's not necessary. You know, with the Patriots, we never know what the hell's going on. Every week, the Patriots have 30 guys on the injury report. And it's not specific. They don't say hamstring. It just says leg or knee. So I love it. I think it's great. You get to KPL, and he spoke, and this is my first time hearing KPL speak and address the media. Really impressive guy. I could see why he's been around the league a couple of times. Similar to the linebacker we signed last year that had been around the league that I wasn't the biggest fan of when we first signed him. I said, oh, he's just a younger, faster version of Mason Foster, but he came in, showed the leadership qualities that forced them to re-sign him this offseason. And KPL is a guy that they brought in, and we've heard nothing but good things from him. Jack Del Rio just can't stop talking about KPL. Ron Rivera talked about him as well. And he specified where he's been playing to this point. He said, look, you know, they're changing us. We're interchangeable parts at the linebacker position. He's like, I don't know if I've been around this much depth at linebacker before. You know, I've been on teams where there have been some elite linebackers, like in Seattle, where he played with, you know, KJ Wright and obviously Bobby Wagner. But he's like, as far as the depth is concerned, man, I don't know if I've been on a team where it's this much depth and so many guys can do so many things. But he said right now they've specifically got him playing the Sam linebacker position. So that's strong side linebacker. So a lot of people have been saying, oh, KPL, they really like him inside. No, they like him at strong side backer. And he said he's been playing a ton of dime backer as well. So that's interesting to know. Normally, when you're in your dime package, there's only one linebacker on the field. If you're in traditional dime package, you've got 6 defensive backs on the field, 4 corners, 2 safeties, and you've got 4 defensive linemen and 1 linebacker. So if he's the only guy on the field, he's been working in with the dime package. That says a lot about his range, his speed, and his coverage ability if they like him in that particular package. And he's been working strong side backer. So gives us a little bit of a feel as to where he's been playing mostly in camp to this point. He said he came here because of the opportunity. He really liked the opportunity here with a young football team, with a new regime coming in. He said he didn't know that there was this much depth at linebacker. Hell, we didn't know it was this much depth at linebacker. But he's like, it's a lot of guys here. But he loves the competition and he loves the opportunity that he's getting. And I left his presser saying, he reminds me a lot of Terry McLaurin in the sense that he just gets it. Well-spoken, very eloquent, and he understands. He's very self-aware. He just gets it, man. And I could see how he could easily be one of a coach's favorite players. You know, I could see that. KPL, definitely a guy that I like a lot more after hearing him speak. Steven Sims stepped to the mic. You don't really hear from Steven Sims very often, so this might have been one of my first times hearing him at a presser before. but he talked about this year being a lot different for starters. He says, I'm working inside and outside. I'm not just playing the slot. They got me playing out wide as well. So I've definitely seen my role expand in the offense. He said, look, I'm fighting for a starting spot. He said, look, I feel like it's mine in terms of the slot, but I'm still fighting with Kidd and with Trey Quinn. Kidd is Kidsey, Darvin Kidsey, for those of you who didn't understand who Kidd was. But he said, yeah, I'm fighting with these guys for, the starting slot role. He's not fighting. But I like that mentality, and I tweeted that out when I think it was either John Keim or JP Finley that tweeted out that he said that. And I said, that's the kind of mentality you want from your guy, even though it was JP, because I remember saying that, and JP said at the end, P.S., it's his spot. That's his spot. He's got that locked down. And I'm like, that's facts. He's the guy inside in the slot. But I love that mentality. And he's a guy that you're going to watch this year. And he said he's just so much more comfortable this year. And come on, I mean, isn't that really easy to understand? Last year, this man was fighting for his NFL life last year, just trying to make a roster as an undrafted guy, and by any means necessary. This year, he's going to make, not only is he going to make the football team, but he's a guy we're going to be relying on, and to the point now where they're moving him around, and he's like really comfortable with what they're asking him to do. And he says he loves how Scott Turner is moving him around and putting him in different positions. And last year there was something that we really didn't see from Steven Sims, and that was him going and getting the ball down the field. Really, Steven Sims was an underneath guy, really working the short to intermediate game, get it in his hands quickly and let him work that way. He's like, yeah, they're giving me more opportunities to actually take routes vertically up the field. So that's something that we didn't really see from him last year, and he can run, and we know that. So I think that's something they need to take advantage of, and I think this coaching staff and this organization understands that we got another guy in Steven Sims that can run. We need to utilize that to help stretch the football field vertically. So that's also something that you heard from Steven Sims. Bryce Love spoke today. He talked about coming off the injury and how it changed his perspective. He also said that he's preparing every day, and he said he learned this from Christian McCaffrey, that he's preparing every day like he's the starter. And that's what he got from McCaffrey. Remember, those two were at Stanford together. He was behind Christian McCaffrey, when McCaffrey put up those cartoonish numbers at Stanford. He then followed up with cartoonish numbers after McCaffrey left. And he said it was the preparation he had with McCaffrey on the roster that helped prep him for his outbreak at Stanford. And so he's preparing like that now, even though he's not the starter for this football team right now. He said he's preparing and carrying himself as if he's the starter. And again, you'll love to hear it. I got to get this man a New Jersey number, though, because 35 is just hideous on a running back. It screams, I'm not a baller. So we got to get this man in a real running back number. Worst case scenario, if you got to go to the 30s as a running back, it's 33, maybe 32. But anything north of 33, it doesn't work for the running back position. And so we got to get this man in a real running back number. And you know what? It's going to be tough because as I look at the 20s, I think they're all pretty much spoken for. You got Landon Collins with 20. Nobody's wearing 21. DeShazer Everett is wearing 22. 23 is Ronald Darby. 24 is Antonio Gibson. 25 is Peyton Barber. 26 is 26. I forgot who's wearing 26, but I think it's somebody that's going to make the football team. 27 is, I don't know who 27 is. 28 is, a number that shouldn't be worn. It's Darryl Green's old number. So nobody's wearing that. 29 is Kendall Fuller after Geis left. So I don't know if he's going to be able to get a number in the 20s, but we got to do something. Something has to be done. AD is 26, as a matter of fact, now that I'm thinking about it. AD is 26. I don't know who is 27. he's got to do something. We got to get him in a 20 number or a better 30 number. But I digress. I want to get into something. I want to get into something a little different tonight, and I call it inside the pictures. So what I want to do is I want to get inside some of these photos because I've been using photos along with some images and some videos, some short clips, and what a lot of these beat reporters have been saying to really piece together my analysis of what's going on. And so we haven't been able to really do that this year. It's been a really odd, again, a unique camp. And so photos are going to tell a lot of the story this year. And so let's go inside the photos as we look at some of these photographs. So this first photo is, I threw the first couple in here just as me wanting to talk about some photos that I thought were pretty cool. This one is interesting for me because every time I see Reuben Foster, he's smiling, man. He's got a smile on his face. I love it, man. He seems to be a guy that has infectious energy, and he just enjoys the game of football. And I love the fact that he said that he understood just how close he was to having this thing that he loves so much taken away from him. And he's got a whole new approach now to the game, does Reuben Foster. And you see it. Every time I see him, this guy's smiling. And I'll tell you this much. Every time I see him, too, he's around Cole Holcomb. They seem to be really building a bond together, and I love that because they could be the future of the Washington football team linebacker position. And Holcomb, I saw him and Holcomb dapping each other up the other day, and that's going to be a fun watch. If those guys are healthy and they're flying around, we know both of them can run. I think that's going to be a really fun situation to watch those guys evolve and develop. And then you see him talking to DeShazer Everett. He's another guy we don't talk about a lot, but I think DeShazer is a guy that they are really comfortable with. And he's a core special teamer and a guy that when things fall apart at safety, if all else fails, you can always put in DeShazer Everett. So I think he's another guy that's probably going to make this football team as well. As you get to the next photo, I thought this was also a pretty cool photo to look at here. The two Wiley vets on the roster, well, there are three of them, but these are two of the three older guys. I told you, only 5 guys on this roster, 30 years or older. And when you look at it, you've got the elder statesman, Thomas Davis, at 37 years old. You got Alex Smith in the middle of the two at 36, and then you got AD at 35 years old. So we got some really old guys, but we don't have many older guys, okay? The other two guys that are 30 or older are Tress Way, which, again, we're talking about a punter here, at 30 years old, and then Ryan Kerrigan is 32. Outside of that, I don't know if there are any other guys on this roster that are 30 years or older. Here are two of them. I'd love to know what this conversation is about that they're having right here. They're both laughing a little bit. I'd love to know what these two Wiley vets are talking about here and what they think about this roster. They've been on so many NFL rosters and teams over the life of their careers. I wonder what it is that they're talking about right here, man. Really interesting to see these two walking and talking and what their impact will be on this roster because I think more so than the play on the field, their impact in the locker room and the presence that they will have and the impact that they'll have on these young players may actually be something that is greater than the actual play that we get from these guys on the field. So it was nice to see Thomas Davis, TD and AD chopping it up off to the side. I thought that was pretty cool. So now this photo here is a photo. I actually got to see this play. So I thought this was an interesting play down in the red zone. They were running their red zone offense. And Antonio Gibson comes out of the backfield on a swing route. And we've been talking about Sean Dion Hamilton all the time and how we love this guy and we want him to be on the football team and he needs to be in the game more. He needs more snaps. And on this particular play, Sean Dion had Antonio Gibson one-on-one out of the backfield. And it was funny because Sean Dion had the angle and there wasn't a ton of space. And so you felt like he should be able to get to Gibson and push him out of bounds. Out of bounds is his friend here. There's no way Gibson is going to turn the corner on him and get into the end zone. And man, to see Gibson turn on the burners, beat Sean Dion to the corner, and then Sean Dion tried to push him out of bounds, but because Gibson is so fast, he doesn't get a good enough push. Gibson then plants his feet, and this is the photo that they took of him planting and then diving. Look at his calf muscles, guys. This guy is thick. He's built, physically built. And he gains his balance and then dives and lunges for the end zone and gets in here for a touchdown. Gibson's going to be a really good weapon out of the backfield, man. And this play was kind of indicative of that because Sean Dion is no slouch in terms of athleticism. And Gibson was just too fast for him on the perimeter. Beat him to the spot and was able to turn the corner and get in to the end zone. I thought this was a pretty cool shot here because you get to see him turning the corner on Sean Dion, but you also get to see just how physically built Antonio Gibson is. We heard 6 feet, 230. He's 6 feet, 230, folks. This is not a game. All right, as we move on to the next photo. This one is of Bryce Love, and I told you this 35 jersey is hideous. It's ugly, but that doesn't mean the guy rocking it isn't doing some work. And this was Bryce getting outside on a carry. I got a little bit of this one. This is one of those times where, you're in practice and they tell you to finish the play. He gets to the outside and he turns it up and runs it all the way to the end zone here. But Bryce Love is a guy that I'm really excited about, man. A lot of you are. We talked about him tonight. And I think he's a guy that when we start looking at the roster for 2021, he's going to be one of the guys we're going to be super excited about. One of the guys we're going to be talking about, hey, this is a guy we can continue to build around. I've been seeing a lot of people talk about how we are going to be drafting a running back in the 2021 draft. And that may be the case, And I've been hearing a lot of fans talk about how we need to draft this guy and this running back and that running back. And maybe running back isn't on the shopping list next year. And if it's not, it's because of guys like Gibson and guys like Bryce Love and maybe even J.D. McKissick stepping up. A guy like Peyton Barber potentially stepping up and making this team feel comfortable about what they have at running back and maybe looking elsewhere to continue to help this team. And maybe running back isn't a position they feel like they need to spend at least an early round draft pick. Maybe they take a 5th or a 6th round back. That never hurts. But I've been hearing people talk about a 1st or a 2nd round back. That may not be the case, and it may not be the case because of guys like Bryce Love. And it's just good to see him be able to open up and carry the football, man. It's been a while since we've been able to see him do that here. And so going to be really interesting to see what Bryce Love is able to do. But I thought it was really interesting to see both of these running backs in two different plays. And I really wanted to highlight them because we've talked about the running back position quite a bit as we've broken down a lot of these positions. So this next photo that I'm going to take a look at is an interesting one. So this is now, we're shifting to the offense now for a second. And I wanted to take a look at the offense in particular. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about was, remember we just talked about Kevin Pierre-Louis and how he's playing strong side backer. Well, there he is right there. Now, that's him, backside of this play. He's a guy that's getting a lot of reps, a lot of first-team reps. And so it'll be, kind of intriguing to see if he's a guy that they see starting, as a strong side backer. A lot of these guys are going to get reps. So that's why I said don't get really hung up on who's starting, who's not starting, because there's a lot of reps to go around. And if they're going to platoon these linebackers the way that they say they are, then it'll be really fascinating to see how many snaps guys are playing. I think KPL could be playing a ton of snaps. He's going to be one of their key special teams players, but he's also a guy that I think is going to be a really good player for us defensively. And you see him on the backside of this play looking to try to chase it down. But the real reason I wanted to show you guys this picture was not because of KPL, but because of this guy right here. This guy is Peyton Barber, 25. And I don't know if you understand this, but he's going to make this football team. I keep trying to. When guys got released, the first thing everybody wanted to go to was Bryce Love and Antonio Gibson and the young guys. And I'm like, don't forget about Peyton Barber. He's the first and second down backup to AD. And I told you this last week when the Geist thing hit and Ron Rivera had to address the media. The first thing he said when they started running down running backs, he said, don't forget about Peyton Barber. They brought him here for a reason. And I told you Rivera respects Peyton Barber's game. The running backs coach, Randy Jordan, said, this guy is as tough of a runner as we have on this roster. Think about that for a second, because we also have AD on this football team. But that goes to show you that Peyton Barber is a no-nonsense runner. He does nothing great, does everything well. I'm telling you right now, as Washington football fans, you're going to really learn to like Peyton Barber because he's a physical back. I liked him last year. Remember, we played against Tampa last year. He ate us up. It wasn't a ton of yards, but they were impressive runs last year. I understand this. Peyton Barber is going to make this football team. And I wanted you to understand that. And I highlight this because look at who's on the field around him. This is a first team rep that he's getting here. This isn't Kyle Allen handing him the football. This isn't Steven Montez handing him the football. Jaron Christian is at tackle. You're looking at Deron Payne at defensive tackle. You're looking at Dwayne Haskins handing him the ball. KPL is in the game. This is a first team rep he's getting here. He's going to make the football team. And this is a guy that you should not dismiss nor discount in Peyton Barber. As we move on, this next photo is really interesting here because you look at this formation, and the first thing I want to look at before we even get to the offense here, first thing I want to look at is the defense. Remember, we talked about the defensive line and the rotation that they had and the guys that were with the first team and taking the reps. And I talked about that on the training camp video yesterday, but look at who's out there. If you look, you've got Montez Sweat all the way on the left side of the line. Next to him is Matt Ioannidis. You can see his helmet sticking out. You can see Jonathan Allen there on the field. And then you've got Ryan Kerrigan on the end. So these are the guys that they had with the first team, the very first reps out there defensively. Remember, I talked about that. Of Sweat, Ioannidis, Allen, and Kerrigan. You see that in front of you right here. So this is really what they have out there. All right, now, let's talk about the offense. Let's go to the offensive side. So you know this is a first team rep. You look at the offensive side. This is the starting five that you're looking at. You're looking at 74 all the way to the left, which is Jaron Christian. Right next to him, you can see crouched down is Wes Martin. All right, 68. Or 67, excuse me. Next to him is Chase Rouillet, 73. Next to him, Brandon Sheriff, 75. Next to him is Morgan Moses, 76. So the starting offensive line there is intact. The guys that they think are going to start, at least right now. Haskins in the backfield along with Antonio Gibson. But this is where things get really interesting here. All right, so the first arrow is number 10. That's our rookie wide receiver, Antonio Gandy Golden, the Gandy man. You see his hair sticking out of his helmet. He's a big guy too. You look at him, he's a big fella as well. So he's out there getting a first team rep. If you look all the way to the opposite side of the formation, you see Cam Sims, number 89, getting a rep as well with the first team. So they're platooning. I told you Terry McLaurin is one of the guys that continues to be in, but they're using all of these receivers. They're finding out who can play, who can't play. There are a lot of guys getting opportunities, but the guy that really intrigued me the most in this photo, and the reason why I wanted you to see this photo, and I absolutely, you see Gibson in the backfield, our other rookie. So you see the two big rookie draft picks on the field at the same time. But the guy that really amazed me here, and I was taken aback by his presence was Marcus Ball. That's number 85 here. All right. Marcus Ball. And again, he's in. This is a first team rep. I just told you the first team defense is in, first team offense is in. This is a first team rep with Marcus Ball in the lineup, and you cannot discount that. All right. And they really like this kid. This could have been Richard Rodgers. This could have been Jeremy Sprinkle. This could have been Logan Thomas. But instead, it's Marcus Ball getting this rep. Now, again, they're platooning these guys. And everybody that I just named probably got first-team reps as well. But I don't think a lot of you thought, I sure didn't think that Marcus Ball was going to be getting first-team reps. So, again, the beauty of this is you're getting – some of these photos give you a little bit of information. You can start to gather some information here as to what's going on. And Marcus Ball is a guy, again, you cannot sleep on, getting first team reps. 85 is out there, and he's alive. 85 is alive, and it's not Vernon Davis. It's Marcus Ball, folks. So don't fall asleep behind the wheel there, man. A lot of young guys in here. I mean, look at this group that Dwayne Haskins is walking up to the line of scrimmage with. You got 2 rookies. You got a second-year player who hasn't taken an NFL snap in Marcus Ball, and then you got Cam Sims, who is a third-year player that still hasn't really played a lot of football. I mean, it's a young football team. Yikes. As we move on and we get to the next photo, this is the last photo that I want to show you guys here. And the intrigue here with this photo, again, first team defense versus first team offense. You look at the defense, you see that now you got Chase Young in, all right, as your right defensive end, left side of the offensive formation. Next to him is Daron Payne. All right, next to him is Matt Ioannidis, and next to him is Montez Sweat. This is more so along the lines of what I think the defense is going to look like as far as defensive line. Maybe Ioannidis is in, maybe he isn't, but I think it's going to look more like this and less like the last one that you saw. But so you know this is a first-team rep. But then you look at the offense, and again, you see the offensive line, it's fully intact. Jaron Christian at left tackle. Right next to him, you see 67. You can see the piece of his helmet in Wes Martin. 73 is your center, Chase Roulier. Right next to him is Brandon Sheriff, and right next to him is Morgan Moses with his J-Bird cleats on. But the interesting thing here for me is who's lined up next to those guys. So next to him is a guy that Ron Rivera continues to gush about in Logan Thomas. So this is a guy that they think is going to be the starting tight end. They like a lot of the things that he brings to the table. Similar to Marcus Ball, they love his athleticism, and they think he can be a problem receiving the football. Now, they said they love his physicality, blocking. We'll see about that down the line. But, another first-team rep, another tight end, and this is a guy that we know is going to make the football team. It's just in what capacity. Is he the starter? Is he getting the bulk of the reps? How do they use him? Do they move him around? Do they flex him out? They think they can do a lot of things with Logan Thomas. And Rivera keeps talking about how young he is and how he's got a lot to learn and how he hasn't been playing the tight end position for a very long time. So, again, it's going to be interesting to see how he's utilized. But that's a guy that I thought, looking at him, first team rep, really interesting seeing Logan Thomas out there. And then this is a guy here that, you see number 80 and you're like, who the hell is that? A lot of you probably are thinking to yourself, who the hell is 80? Well, that's Dontrell Inman right there. He's been in. I looked at a lot of photos and I said, man, Dwayne sure is spending a lot of time with this number 80 dude. So I actually had to go find out who the hell number 80 was because, Dwayne was off to the side talking to him and they were doing some route things. And I said, damn, he's doing a lot of work for a guy that might not be on the roster. And sure enough, I saw that 80 was Dontrell Inman, and I realized, okay, no, he's going to be on the football team. And that's why Dwayne is trying to get him up to speed on everything. So that's another guy you need to familiarize yourself with because he's not going anywhere. So, sometimes these photos can tell a lot of the story, and we see who is actually getting opportunities, who's getting reps, who's lining up where, how, and how much. So you look at the sideline of this photo and you see a lot of guys watching. You see Ryan B over there, 92. Could he be in the mix for one of those backup defensive tackle spots? You see 72. That's James Smith Williams over there on the sidelines. He's next to number 54, Nate Orchard, who's over there watching. Ryan Anderson back at practice, 52 watching. 95 is Jordan Brailford. He's over there watching. So, you kind of get a sense of what's going on at practice a little bit through photos sometimes. And I thought that was pretty interesting, to say the least. So I thought that was something interesting to take a look at, was, inside the photos. And that's something we'll do here on a weekly basis as we approach the season. I did see that I had another super chat, so I'll get that out of the way and then we'll get out of here. Have another super chat, and it's from, I think it's from my man Redskins Bay. Let me see. It is Redskins Bay 12th man. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Redskins Bay 12th man writes, BL, I'm a fan. And I expect you to hit 500K next year. That'd be great, but not happening. But hey, why not? He says, keep the info coming and don't trust no one with 2 first names. Never, ever trust a man with 2 first names. That's why the left tackle position is up for grabs right now, because every single one of those jokers got 2 first names. And I've already told you guys plenty of times, never, ever trust a man with 2 first names. And on that note, I'm going to glide to the side, man, and get out of here. I really appreciate you guys blessing the program tonight. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for the updates and keeping me in the know, with Rivera announcing he has cancer. Had no idea. So a lot of you guys were able to relay that information to me. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you for that. And thank you for joining me. As I mentioned at the top of the show, you could have been anywhere else, but you were here tonight. And so thank you, whether you got here on time, you got here a little bit later, or you got here at the end. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Graciously appreciate you guys. And on that note, I am a Washington football fan. Ashton Burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to our beloved Washington football team. You guys take care. Stay safe. We'll reconvene at a later date and time. I've got another podcast episode tomorrow. So if you're around noon, I'll be live. We're doing a throwback episode of the podcast. So you're more than welcome to join us. Look forward to doing that. If you got nothing going on tomorrow, hey, hit your man Louie T up. We'll be having some fun on the Louie T Network podcast. I've released 2 other episodes this week. Prior to that, 2 episodes last week. So check all of that out. It's on any streaming platform that you get podcasts. It's on YouTube as well. We'll be on YouTube doing the podcast 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So look forward to you guys chopping it up with you there, is you guys jumping on and chopping it up with you there as well. But in the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and also remember, like this video, subscribe to the Louie T Network if you haven't already done so, and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Until next time, I'm your man, Louie T. Take care and have a good one.